Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story, A Journey of Faith and Fear. I met my wife in 2004. We were married in December 2005. When me and my wife first got married, she was pursuing a career in the medical field. My mom also works in the healthcare industry at an assisted living facility in the town that we live in. She had told my wife, she said, "Hey, there is a lady that needs 24-hour care, but her family doesn't want to put her in a nursing home. They have went out and purchased her a house. They've added on a handicap accessible area, and the rest of the house would be yours. The only room that you would share would be the kitchen. You would need to cook for. Everything's paid for utilities. They're looking for people to move in and take care of her. Would you guys be interested in doing that?" We thought about it. We're like, maybe that's a good thing. We could save a little money. And we agreed. We ended up moving out of our apartment. In January of 2007, moved in with this lady. This is where things started to change for us. This lady had one family member that was just really didn't jive with me. This woman was very dark, depressing, if you will. She's never seemed to have anything good to say. Never had a smile on her face. She was never really a happy person. It was really sad, but we dealt with her. And the thing that this elderly lady that we took care of, she was legally blind. She was in a hover-round, basically. That's how she was able to get around. She'd get out of her chair and get to a mobility chair, go to the bathroom. We would just be nearby in case she needed this. She couldn't really watch TV. She would listen to it. She really liked A&E. She would watch the whole entire block of programming every night. There was a show that started. It's called Paranormal State. It was about these college students. They would go to these houses where they felt like there was supernatural activities happening there. That's really, I think, who started experimenting. Things start coming. One night, me and my wife had left Wednesday night Bible class. We come home. We were in our part of the house, which was 3-bedroom to the living room. A 1 full bathroom with a double vanity, and then a half bath that had a stand-up shower toilet. So we're in the master bathroom, standing in front of the vanity, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. My wife said it got really cold. All of a sudden I said, "Yeah, I did. I don't like it. There's something in this house. Let's go to the living room. Let's pray." I turn on the living room light. Me and my wife both got down in the couch, on our knees, and start praying. We're rebuking the devil. I just remember stopping. I was listening to my wife. She was crying, face buried in the pillow. All of a sudden, I heard the loudest, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. I still hear it in my mind. Then there was a peace that I can't even describe that entered that room. I told my wife, I said, "Babe, it's gone." We went to bed, both slept like babies. That next Friday we had service. We had church. I stood up and I testified about it. What I didn't know was that night, this thing had left our house and went across the street. We had went to church with folks across the street. This man's name is Matt. Matt had heard my testimony Friday at church. He actually came over to my house. He told me that morning, He said I woke up out of a dead sleep. I thought somebody broke into my house. I went straight through the house, checked on the kids, they were fine. And he said something began to speak to me. After that had happened, we went on just business as usual. We just lived our life. We've went several years without anything happening, until I was at a funeral. A good, close family friend of mine lost his sister in a head-on collision. She died instantly. We were at the funeral home. There were 3 people that showed up, and they were witches. They looked at me almost like telepathically. Something spoke and said, "There's 3 of us." It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I just looked dead at these people. And I was just like, "In Jesus' name." They never said anything to me. It was just a very wild experience. And I've never had anything like that happen since. We ended up moving it, just didn't end up working out. Taking care of that lady, we didn't have really any freedoms. We were young, and we ended up moving it into my grandma's house in Kailyn I. Everything was good. We didn't have any issues. Me and my wife were trying for children, and we'd end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars of fertility drug, fertilization and all that stuff. And we were just like, okay, whatever, we'll just adopt. This man is an older gentleman out of Atlanta. Georgia preach, just a really amazing message, all about faith and healing. He was closing and said, "If you believe that God's able to touch, and can you just come up here and let me pray for you right now?" My wife, without hesitation, went up there. Pray for her. She heard a voice give her a date. So she went to her phone, puts the date in, and it was exactly 9 months. On the very day that it's saved in her phone, she got a phone call from her friend that she worked with. She called me. She said, "If you and your husband looking to adopt, my mother's friend has custody of her granddaughter." My wife hangs up the phone, and she just instantly starts crying. She goes, "You ain't gonna believe this." And then she tells me that. She unloads that on me. I'm like, unbelievable. A week later, they called us and said, she has a half-sister that was just born. And we went from an emptiness to a fullness, like literally overnight. This is where it seemed like the activity picks back up again with us. When they came to be with us, they came out of a very horrible condition, a very horrible situation. In this family, there was a half-brother and half-sister that were in the occult practice. Witchcraft, and their dad had committed suicide. They also had 2 cousins in the same family. Father-son commit suicide. The dad committed suicide too. 3 years later, son committed suicide. This whole family line was completely played. It was just a very nasty, bad situation that these girls were brought out of. I started having these nightmares. I would be asleep and feel this dreadful, overwhelming fear come into the room. It's always the dark shadow, figure of a man that walks to my side of the bed. It reaches for my throat. It tries to choke me. I am fighting with everything I got, just to say the name of Jesus. It takes every ounce of strength. Once I get the name out, then the hands receive. And I just keep saying it until I wake up. And I'll wake up in a full flesh fight mode. It started after we adopted our girls. And then I started traveling all over the United States, in Kailyn I. I was working my first job out of town in Bradenton, Pennsylvania. I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express, right there on the river. I was sharing a room with a guy that worked night shift. But he wasn't there. I was turning in for the night. I got that overwhelming feeling of dread and terror come over me again. I watched this black figure of a man come through the door and get real close and start to grab my neck, start to squeeze. Again, the fight is on to get the name of Jesus out of my mouth. I have probably had one of these episodes from probably 2014 too. I think the last one I had was probably a few weeks ago. Pretty brutal. Me and my wife and my daughters were coming home. Who just turned down our road? There's a greenhouse on this country road, and there's a street light. On the opposite side of the greenhouse, there's a home. We had just turned at the light and started down our road when I seen this 10 or 11-year-old girl on a Razor scooter widening right across the road. My daughters were like, "Dad, what is that?" The face is a pale. Dick looked like death. A dead face, pale, sunken, hollow eyes. It was wearing a jacket with fur around the face, staring right at us, and went right across the road and vanished into thin air. I stopped right in the middle of the street. The light actually dimmed as this thing crossed the road. I backed up, turned my brights on, shined them, because I was like, where did that kid go? There was nobody around. My wife said, just go to the house. It just makes you think, where do these things go? If you don't have the power to get rid of them, they just what? Do they just take up shop at your house? Do they just mess with you? Move. Moving on around August of 2021, my wife came to me and she said, "Hey, you ain't gonna believe this." I said what she said, "I'm pregnant." We've been married, this is year 19 for us. I was excited and I couldn't believe it. I grew this house. I'm like, we gotta pass. We gotta buy a house. We ended up finding perfect house. Right there in the middle between church and work. It's perfect. She had moved in April 2022. Ate her first meal April 4th, 2022. Down the road from us, the trailer park. And there's a lot of bad activity that happens. This trailer park, a lot of drug use. A lot of meth cops are coming and going. My middle daughter, being the social butterfly that she is, she made friends with a girl that lived in the same apartment. She said I want her to stay the night. I like to take her to Sunday school. I said I work, that's fine with me. I don't care. This little girl comes over and we feed her a good meal. We're getting ready for bed. On a matter of fact, I'm in bed. These girls come running down the hallway, down to my room, busting my door like, yeah. He saw something. He saw this giant shadow walking down the hallway towards us. I said, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna go living room. We're gonna pray. We're gonna get rid of this thing. This little girl's looking at me. She said, I've seen this before. It's at my house. It changes colors. I looked at her. I said, honey. I said, I want to tell you something. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. You're gonna pray about it. I'm gonna help you. She's crying. He started praying. I felt that heaviness lift. I told him, I said, we're good. Y'all go to sleep. We'll see you in the morning. With the rampant drug use in this adjacent neighborhood, I believe that there's residual spirits that are out. I was sitting in my living room one night, minding my own business. But out of the corner of my eye, I seen something manifest in my kitchen. It was just a brief second. I was looking right into my kitchen. It went floating by and and it was another dead face that had just this ugly face. No eyes, just this ugly, dead-looking corpse on the face. And I've seen that twice. It's probably the start of this year. I was going to bed, and I got a big guard dog. He always lays next to my bed. He just starts growling, and I hear this. Right in my doorway in my closet. Am I really hearing this? I thought about David, and when David slew Goliath in the Bible, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fear whatever this is, because I got something greater. I just fell asleep, I just went to bed, and that was that. But I will tell you, there are good times that I've got up in the middle of the night, thinking my Lord and my will. One of my dogs have an accident in the house. I'll smell putrid, like absolute putrid smells, like what in the world? Like just pure death. I'll go look around, there wouldn't be nothing there. And I'm like, okay, I know what this is. Every time I'm just getting out of a prayer. That's why. I guess really why I wanted to share my story. Because I've experienced this in High Amsterdam. And this is what I've experienced. Me, personally, I just believe it comes with the territory. It comes with what I'm doing. You can share your story with us by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. We're building a great community here, so thank you so much for your messages and reviews. You can support us and get the episodes without ads by trying out Scary, plus links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story. There's something in the closet. I grew up in a small town called Lake Los Angeles. It's 30 minutes away from Lancaster, an hour away from Los Angeles. This house was bought by my dad. He built it up. Whatever was in that house didn't come from the land. It came from something I didn't know. The first encounters, I would be outside playing or be alone. I would hear my mom call me. I would run to her. This happened countless times. My mom would be like, no, I didn't call you. What are you talking about? I do recall the feeling of being watched, being afraid to be alone. I was really scared of being alone. Even as a toddler, as a baby, I was scared of being alone in that house. I was in 3rd grade. I was sitting down next to my bed folding my clothes. My closet was wide open. I felt something in my head was like, oh, look at the closet. As I turned around, my hangers start moving, like somebody is looking for clothes. I stood frozen. When I could react, I ran out of my room and went to go tell my mom. My mom was like, oh no, you're probably just imagining things. It was probably just the AC. It was probably just the wind. But there was nothing on no fans. Nothing that could explain that. After that, I can't remember much. Just being really scared of being alone. I was really terrified of my closet. I would close my closet at night, wake up, and the part of the closet was open. It was a sliding door closet. It was open, like if somebody could peek through. I would gaslight myself, oh, maybe I didn't close it right. But now thinking back on it, I would close my closet right, because I was very scared. I was in 4th grade when I actually started seeing whatever was in the house. My dad had an office room. Our hallway was really long. It just had doors. I was sitting there in my room watching TV. My dad was in his office earlier. I never saw him leave. But all of a sudden, I did see him walk by. I was going to ask my dad, hey, can I play pinball on the computer? Or go on Club Penguin? I walked into the office. It was just pitch black. When I had just seen whatever that figure was, walk into that room. That's when I was like, there's something wrong in this house. I saw that figure go into the room. Since the hallway was dark, the room was dark. I didn't make note of it. I didn't think, but as I walked up to the door was shut when I opened it. The room was completely pitch black. There was nobody in there. I ran to the garage, told my dad. My dad is a very non-believer. And he was like, no, it's just in your head. You're watching movies, I told my mom. I feel like my mom always knew what was going on in that house. She would always try to keep it calm by telling me it was just my imagination. I continued to see shadows out of the corners of my eyes or the closet. I would hear noises in the closet, rustling, things like that. We left to Mexico for vacation, and we came back. I overheard this conversation. My uncle was telling my mom that in my room and in the closet he heard voices. He heard rustling. He felt something, a very negative presence watching him. My mom was like, oh, it's just our sister, because her sister had passed away. My uncle was like, no, that is not a presence of our family. That is the presence of something bad. My mom chose to blow it off. Later on, I think I was in 6th grade. I don't remember a lot of stuff. Maybe I blocked it out because I was so scared. I used to love watching a haunting. I was sitting there watching with my dog. I started hearing my dog. She was growling at the hallway. I was like, what's wrong? She stopped. I continued to watch TV. Then she starts barking like crazy. I looked up and I saw this tall, dark figure walk from that office room to my parents' room. My dog was going crazy, barking, barking, barking. I grabbed her and I went outside and I was like, hey, this is what I saw. They always wanted to tell me that's not what you saw, that it was just in my head or in my imagination. I know it was it. After that, things started to pick up a lot. I started feeling things touch me and whisper right next to me. There was this one instance. My sister had come over. She was healing the relationship with our family. I was babysitting her son. He was toddler age 2 or 3. She left him in his playpen. They had all left to Walmart. I was left alone. I was in my bedroom cleaning, getting ready for school the next day. 'Cause it's Sunday, I felt like when somebody walks behind you. But somebody small. I thought it was my nephew. I was like, oh. He climbed out of his playpen's gonna go play. Next to my closet where I have all the toys, I start hearing rustling where my backpack was. Where all the toys were, I was like, hey baby, stop doing that. It just continued. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his figure, a small little figure there. I was like, hey, you need to stop. Don't rip my stuff. I walk from my bed to where the closet is. There was nothing. I immediately ran out and went to go see where he was. He was sleeping in his playpen. I picked him up and ran outside and called my sister. Hey, you need to get home right now. I don't remember being this hysterical, but my sister said I was crying, screaming, telling her to come home. She came home as fast as she could and calmed me down. She didn't gaslight me. She knew what was going on in the house. She knew what was happening. Time goes by, we're moving out of this house. It was during recession, we were going to Mexico. I was packing my stuff. The same way my closet was open in the 3rd grade. The same everything I was doing, the same. I looked up again. My hangers were just moving. I was so mad at the circumstances of moving to a new country. I told that you need to stop. You need to leave me alone. I was so mad it just stopped. Those moving hangers just stopped. Completely stopped. It was shaking, and it stopped. Right before moving out, my mom was sitting down on the couch. We were watching novellas. I got upset at her. I left to my room and locked the door. I was sitting there writing in my diary. All of a sudden, I just feel my room shake like an earthquake. We used to have this religious figure. It was L.A. Virgin Maria. She's holding baby Jesus. And they're started rocking back and forth as soon as everything stops. I get up, run to my mom, and I'm like, "Hey, Mom, there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake." My mom just looks at me. She's like, "What are you talking about? Are you okay? What's going on?" I explained to her. She just was like, "Okay, we'll pray together." That's when my mom started really realizing that I wasn't lying. She knew the whole time. Fast forward to us being adults, living in a new house. We were all sitting down. I started telling my mom, "Remember when you would gaslight me so much about this house?" My sister starts laughing. They start laughing. They're like, "We all experienced stuff in that house. They just wanted to protect me. Have me not be afraid." My sisters, they decided to play summoning games, mirror games, Ouija board in that room. The closet used to have mirror doors. After the seminary games, she dreamt about a demon, a presence trying to suck her into the mirror. She woke up with scratches on her cheeks. I think when my sisters played those summoning games, those mirror games, that Ouija board, they let something out. It wasn't good. I don't know if it was a demon, but it liked to mess with me. I liked to cause fear to make itself known. It was really scary. My mom, she tells me that in that room, she was never able to sleep. She felt like something was there. A negative, nasty presence watching her. My sister, when she would come over, she wouldn't sleep in there either. Everybody who stayed at that house, that was family. Not family. They always said the same thing. They heard ruffling in the closet, or a voice, a really strong, negative energy watching upon them while they sleep. Whatever it was, it's still in that house right now. That house, it's alone. Nobody lives in there. There's abandoned cars there. Somebody owns it, but I don't think anybody stays or resides there anymore. I've never been back to that house. I did go back to my friend's house. He lives next door. We were waiting. I forgot before my friend was like, "Let's play Ouija board, come on. It'll be fun." I said, "Okay, that's fine." We started to play. It's going smoothly. We look up protection. We do it in a safe way, but all of a sudden, the mood changes when my friend asks it the question, "Hey, do you know us?" It says yes. We ask it, "How long have you known us?" It doesn't reply. We asked, "Have you known us since we were kids?" Yes. I've started to feel exactly how I felt in that house. That same presence that I always felt. I don't know what it was, just a negative, dark presence. I told my friend, "We need to stop. We need to stop playing this. Whatever was in that house is channeling through your house. We need to stop." When we stopped, we closed everything, said goodbye, but I still felt very uneasy, like I was being watched, the same way I hadn't felt in a long time. My friend was like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." I went home that day. I still felt the same way. Lights would flicker. I don't know if it was a coincidence. I started waking up at odd times. 3 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. I started feeling scared. My friend was like, "You should go to somebody who does a cleansing." We did a cleansing. She said whatever was in that house before was trying to attach itself to me again. The curandera brujera. I don't know what to refer to her as, told me that. Not to play with those things because in my family, somebody had done brujeria to my dad. Whatever was out to hurt my dad was out to hurt us. I didn't know this, my mom. She did confirm that. My grandma and my aunt would do brujeria. They would do things like that. That's what the lady ended up advising me. That's why I feel like I believe a lot in that now. So later on, my mom met the lady that rented the home. She asked my mom, was there anything? Did anybody pass away in this house? My daughters are experiencing things that we can't explain. My mom said, I would just pray and be strong with your faith. In your religion, they can't hurt you. My mom didn't tell her what happened. It is not to scare her. She had just rented out the house. She was a single mom. She was happy. I still experience paranormal things. We moved into a different house. And this one wasn't as scary. It was comforting. We moved into a house and my dad works with word a lot. He was making my mom's friends a box for her ashes. Her ashes were in our house. I remember this night. They had took my door away because I was being a bad kid. I was falling asleep. My dog was barking at the hallway. I pushed him so he would stop. I woke up, he's still doing it. I decided to cover him with the blanket. As I'm falling asleep, I felt something. Like when your mom used to wake you up to go to school. If she would touch your face to wake you up. That's what it felt like somebody was doing to me. I brushed it off. I thought it was my dog. Then I felt it again. I opened my eyes. There was nothing in the room. My dog was just sitting there frozen. I think he was scared. He was silent. I was like looking everywhere. There was nothing in the room. We say it's that person, my mom's friend, because I used to call her Grandma. I feel like in a way I was her coming to say bye. She never got to say bye to me. But that's a different experience. Not as scary as the ones in that house, where I felt things touching me or watching me. It's really scary to think. There's things out there that like to cause fear that want to hurt you, especially when you're a child. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story. A warning from my mother. What happens when eerie encounters refuse to be ignored? One man's life has been haunted by inexplicable events. But now, avoiding the supernatural may no longer be an option. My name is Edwin, and here is Andrea's true scary story. My name is Andrea. I'm from South Africa. My mom is the very spiritual one. And because I'm Portuguese, we are part of the Christian Catholic religion. She would tell me a lot growing up about seeing things, or giving messages, or getting messages from somebody, saying something is about to happen in your life. She didn't really influence me as much. And my dad also didn't quite believe in it, as much as what she did, but throughout my life. There's been a few small things that happened that I'd talk to her about, and then she would always turn around to me and say, "Yeah, you see, it's real." When I was 8 or 9 years old, just after my sister was born, we used to live in this very big mining house. So in South Africa, when you work for the mines, which is what my dad used to do, they would provide housing. Now, the housing that was provided was built back in the 1960s. And in this house, there's a lot of wooden floors. You could hear quite well. when somebody was walking around, through the hallways towards the bedrooms, towards the sitting room. It was quite difficult to sneak around the house. The first encounter occurred one night when I was taking a bath in my parents' bathroom. All of our rooms were on the same side of this house. If you walked down the hallway facing the rooms, my bedroom would be on the right, and my parents' would be on the left. The bathroom would also be on the left, but it would be just before my parents' bedroom. I was taking a bath in their bathroom this one evening. My dad was working late due to some incident that happened at the mine. I was playing with my toys in the bath when I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. I could tell that this was my mom walking towards the bedroom. When I saw her walk past, I greeted her and kept playing, thinking everything's normal. She went to fold up laundry in the bedroom. After a few minutes, I heard heavier footsteps coming down the hallway, so I shouted for my dad, thinking that he had arrived home safely. My mother shouted from the bedroom saying, "No, your dad can't be home because he hasn't called me yet. He's still underground dealing with the incident." So I thought that was strange, but carried on playing anyways. And then I heard footsteps coming down that hallway, towards the bedroom again, still sounding heavy. So I thought again that it was my father. I shouted to my mom that, "Hey, Dad is home." But she shouted at me again, saying, "No, he's not home. She still hasn't received the call. He's still at work. He's still underground." Right after she told me that, I heard the footsteps coming towards the bathroom again. But it's as if they were going to walk across the entrance to the bathroom. So I waited, and I looked to see if there was anyone coming through. But I didn't see anyone. The footsteps stopped, and I was looking at the hallway and didn't see anybody there. I faced basically the bathroom door, which was open, and it looked like some weird black cloak disappeared behind the bathroom door. As I was looking at it, I freaked out. I shouted for my mom to come get me. I told her what had happened, so she came running. I kept staring at the door. When she came in, I pointed to the door, trying to explain to her what I just saw. And then she just told me that if I ever see darkness, or see anything that's out of the ordinary, I must pray. She would always be watching over us with regards to the spiritual world. You know, the paranormal. And sometimes she would even tell us things that either hasn't happened yet, and then it would happen, or you know something that we wouldn't have told her, but she knows about it. It's actually frightening sometimes. I'm even getting goosebumps right now, thinking about it, and I have a funny feeling that when I am done here, I'm gonna probably get a phone call from her, saying that, "No, were you talking about me?" 'Cause stuff like that happens. It's weird. This was a few months later. I used to have a pet hamster named Alex in my bedroom. If you go straight into my bedroom, my bed would be on your left. Then I would have a desk at the end of the bed, and then I would have this huge window facing our back garden. While I had my hamster Alex, I had him in a cage, and the cage was always on that desk in front of the bed. When I tried to go to sleep during the night, I would hear the squeaking coming from his little wheel that he would run on. I think it was a few days before the event. He somehow escaped from his cage, and he ran out of my window. We looked inside the cage. We could not find it. We searched quite thoroughly for it, and we just couldn't find Alex the hamster. Few days later, after he had disappeared, I went to bed quite early because it was a school night. I woke up during the night feeling uneasy, as if something is watching you, or someone's there in the corner, just staring down at you with this pressure on you. It's quite a strange feeling. I sat up, and I didn't hear my parents in the television room, so I assumed that it was late enough, that they were already sleeping. I tried to go back to sleep. I heard the footsteps coming down that hallway again. At first I thought maybe it's my mom, because my mom would stand up, take the dogs outside for them to go and do their business, and then she would come back inside. But it would have been a bit strange if it was just her on her own, because normally she would have the dog's footsteps following behind her. I just kept feeling like there was some sort of pressure surrounding the atmosphere in my room. But I heard the footsteps, and they started getting closer to my bedroom door. My bedroom door would normally be closed enough that I could still have a bit of light coming from the hallway if somebody turned on the light. But there was no light at all. So I know for a fact that it wasn't my mother. Then the feeling of a supposed anxiety got worse. The footsteps kept coming, stopped right outside my door. Something pushed my door lightly so that it could open a bit. And I saw it opening, and I thought, okay, you know what? My mom is just checking up on me. She's making sure I'm sleeping. Because it is a school night, but nobody poked head around to see me nothing. And I began to hear my hamster's wheel start squeaking, as if he was running on it, but running super fast. That's when I just freaked out. I threw the blanket over my head. I screamed out in terror when that squeaking got so loud. It's as if it was right next to me. Mother came running from her bedroom, asking me what's happening. Stopped. We checked the cage. No hamster. After that event happened, we went outside of our front door. So the front door to the whole household was actually quite close to where my bedroom door was. So I always thought that he escaped through the window and into the garden. And the next day, I found him in the garden, right in front of the front door, which was amazing. He came back. My mom said that something was kind of affecting me, so she said that we need to call somebody to come and cleanse the house, to get the house clean. But my dad was always very against the idea. This would cause quite a lot of fights between them. Money wasn't a problem for us. We were very fortunate. But my dad was always under a lot of pressure at work. Whenever he got home, there would be quite a lot of negativity from his side, because his work was not easy. Especially for the mines in South Africa. It's quite a difficult job to do. So he was under a lot of pressure all the time. Because of that, my parents used to fight quite a lot. So I could hear them sometimes screaming at each other, shouting. My dad would be the first one to really raise his voice. But my mom used to keep saying this thing to him of, you are bringing such negative energy into our household, and it's affecting your son. So that's basically affecting me. We moved around quite a lot because of my dad's work. So we moved into this brand new house. We had an upstairs and a downstairs. This is why. This makes these events a bit strange for me. Because nobody has lived in this house at all. We were the first family to live in this house. This was about 2 years after my sister was born. This one night, my sister and we were downstairs. My sister was sleeping on a 2-seater couch. Opposite me and I was on the other. Similar 2-seater couch watching TV. My sister's sleeping. She's tossing and turning a little bit, but nothing is bothering her as much. Next, out of the blue moment, she wakes up, she looks at me, and as if it was a ticking time bomb, she just started screaming, as if somebody was physically hurting her. So I got up, I ran to her, and I tried to calm her down. And a few moments later, my mother came down, asking, "What did I do? What did I do?" So my mother came, picked her up. She calmed her down. And then my mother sat on the couch with my sister, and everything was fine. We carried on watching TV. My sister fell asleep, my mom's arms. My mom put her down next to her, just to give her a more comfortable position to lie in. After a few minutes, once again, out of the blue, starts freaking out. Just didn't make sense. But she did this thing where she would sit up. She starts screaming. But then she's pushing something in front of the couch. She's like extending her arm away, as if something is attacking her from under the couch. So she just kept extending her arm, trying to push something away. We are going towards her. My mom picks her up, and she's still got her arm extended, pushing whatever it is. We both freaked out by what's happening. So my mom just takes her, starts praying. Still don't know what happened. But my sister talked about it later on, when we got older, and she says no. She remembers that. It was these black dogs trying to attack her. They were trying to drag her away. That's what she remembers. That's so quite strange. Time passed. We still in this new house. I'm sleeping in my room if you climb up the stairs. The first door directly in front of you was the entrance to my bedroom. Left was the office/study room. And then on the other side of that was my parents' and my sister's bedroom. I fell asleep that night and woke up with that same uneasy feeling I had in the other house. I'm lying down facing the entrance, and I can see my cupboards, where my clothes and toys used to be packed away. And I saw that my middle cupboard where my toys were was left open, which is a very strange thing to happen, because every time I went there to put on my clothes before climbing into bed, I was taught from my parents that I must always close a cupboard and don't leave it open. I could see like an outline of the shelves, and it was very bright, like white. So even though it was dark, you could still make out a little bit of the shape of the shelves. Once I saw that, there was kind of like a weird cloth that I saw in the previous house coming out of the cupboard, but sloping downwards like smoke. If you've ever seen cold vapor, whatever flowing down the shelf. If you open the freezer during a really hot day, and you see that vapor just crawl underneath and fall straight down because it's cold. It was like that, but it's black. I tried to close my eyes, didn't want to look at it, but I looked at the cupboard again, and that's when I saw these two. Bright red eyes looking at me, and I jolted awake, like your body just jumps up from, as if you got a fright when you're falling. Screamed my lungs out. Even our house alarm went off, which was also strange, because nobody was at the bottom story, or the downstairs area. It's almost as if the alarm went off at the same time as I did. My mother ran in. She said her famous words. "Okay, just pray. I told you, if you see that, you need to pray. Don't let it in." But I was just so freaked out. I didn't think of doing that stuff. The same house again. I think I was lucid dreaming. You can't move your body at all. You can move your eyes, but you can't really move your body at all. So I think in this evening, that's what was happening to me. So I was sleeping and woke up very late in the morning. Can't remember the time, probably off to about 2 a.m., and I couldn't move my body, as if it was like... With an instinct, I looked at the cupboards, where I saw that shadow face thing with the red eyes. But my cupboards were closed. didn't see anything. So I thought, okay, I'm safe, I felt comfortable. Then I decided to look at my bed, my headrest. That was a big mistake, so I saw this face. Like a face that had a mask above my head. It started forming. But it did it in such a way that it's like it just starts appearing out of thin air, solidifying this very vivid, detailed image of a face in front of you. I don't know whose face it was, because it looked like it was wearing a mask. I freaked out. I felt this heavy pressure. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move, but I tried to see if I could wake my body up. I kept trying to move. It still kept coming towards me after it had formed. Eventually, I got feeling in my body and I punched at the face, kind of like a fight or flight response. I remember seeing my arm going through it before he disappeared. Since then, if I ever have like a lucid dream, or if I'm ever awake, but I can't move my body, I will keep my eyes closed, because I don't want to see that again. There was just such a horrible pressure after that, and I think that's why I just tried to fight it. My mother would always try and be in control, and she would always cleanse. Even if my dad didn't believe it, she still did it because she believed that it was, like, very important, and she would always protect us. My grandparents are from Portugal. My uncle, my mom's brother, he passed away when he was 24, and my uncle was buried there. So when we went to visit, we stood on top of his grave, and since that first time, I always have, like, a comfortable feeling that he's around me. You know that I know everything is fine. And my mother says that he is always around the kids, always around my sister and I. He is our guardian angel. He is protecting us. And I think that's sometimes why I see things, even if I don't believe them. I will still experience small things. My mother is quite a big role in all of this stuff because of her being more religious. So everything, ironically enough, kind of ties around her. I used to have an ex-girlfriend in high school. Her mother passed away when she was about 3 years old. So she hasn't had a mom for many years. It was quite sad, but, you know, she carried on. So we started going out. She used to tell me about her mom, and, you know, I used to see her, pictures of them when my ex was a little baby, with her mom on her mom's lap. What happened with this story was, she told me about her mom, and she would sometimes have quite vivid dreams, as if her mom was still around her. I always thought, I don't think there's anything there. Maybe there's no meaning to the messages that your mom's trying to give you in your dreams. So she would say that her mom in her dreams would say, no, that she's found someone that she can talk to. And I thought, okay, that's very weird. Then she says that her mom felt a pulling force towards another person. It wasn't me, because I didn't really feel anything change, and nothing happened to me specifically. However, because we were going out, and her mom kept telling the daughter that, oh, I'm feeling a pulling force. She was actually feeling that pulling force to my mom, so I disregarded everything she said. But a week after that, my mom says, listen, she's not feeling well. There's someone that is bothering me when I'm trying to sleep, and I asked my mom, what do you mean I don't understand? Who is someone? So my mom says no. She woke up, she saw this lady talking to her, and she wanted my mom to try and communicate with her daughter through my mom. She kept bugging my mom for 2 nights, and my mom eventually had enough, and she came to me and said, listen, I need to have a talk with this girl. I need her to come over now. I need to sit down, because this lady is bothering me the whole time. I cannot sleep, it's messing me up. So much so that my mom even looked sick. My ex came over, we sat down around a table. My ex didn't have to say anything. My mom told her everything about her mom, how she passed, why she wants to communicate with her. She wore glasses, a specific accessory that you need for every day. So she says no. She wore these black glasses, and she did this. And these are the common things that she would want you to remember her for. And my ex broke down in tears, saying she can't even explain, because she never told me all of those details to me, so that I would tell my mom no. My mom knew all of this stuff all by herself. That was very scary. Still, these things happen. And my mom still says you are sensitive to it. Even if you deny it, you still gonna see it because you're sensitive to it. But I don't know, I'm 27 years old now. It's freaky that it still happens. You know, they say that dogs can see this sort of thing. We have a little pickiness. Sometimes during the night, he stares at the door and he barks and he doesn't stop. This one last event happened about 2 weeks ago. I normally set my alarm for 5 a.m. or 5 a.m. so that I can drive to work, because it's about an hour's drive. But what happened this morning? I forgot that I actually switched it off. So my first alarm went off. I would normally snooze it. Then my second alarm would go off 30 minutes after the first one. But this morning I switched both of them off. Don't know how, but that happened. Now it's 6 in the morning when I always leave for work. I was in dreamland. I heard this scream. Like this loud shout as if it was right in my ear. That woke me up, and you wake up. You get a fright, you trying to catch your breath. That's how I was. I thought, what's happening? Is it my girlfriend? Is she okay? Because we live together. So she's next to me. So I thought, oh, maybe she's screamed no. She's passed out. She's not even facing my direction. Whatever it was, woke me up at the exact time that I had to go to work. So then I phoned my mother about this, and I told her the story of what happened. As I'm telling her the story, she tells me no. I'm getting goosebumps right now, just hearing you. Tell me about this woman that screamed. And then she starts asking me questions like, was she old? Was she young? I said to her, I don't know. I can't really tell how. The difference between an old and young scream. But it's a scream. And then she tells me it's weird that it's a woman. Because it would sound maybe like your uncle and not somebody else. So then my mom says, listen, you need to be careful because it would be maybe possible that it's your uncle. If it's a man's voice, but if it's a woman, maybe it's something else. So be careful. Do you know of someone who has a true scary story that takes place in the woods? Let me know by going to truescarystory.com and to get in touch or join our Scary Plus members that get to listen ad-free. Check out scaryplus.com or get in touch with me if you have any questions. I'll leave links to everything in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Unwelcome Visitor. Don't listen to this one alone. What she thought was her uncle's spirit returning turned into a terrifying encounter that she will never forget. My name is Edwin, and here is Angie's true scary story. My name is Angelica. I live in Murrieta, California. This happened in Temecula, California. More Winchester. Past Lake Skinner, its very secluded area hills, cows, fences, and your closest neighbor is about a mile away. At night, it was pretty scary. The only lights you can see were the houses. that you can see through the hills. Around this time, my parents had divorced, and we lived in a home in Monrovia Valley. In that home, I experienced a lot of dark energy. During their divorce, it was very ugly. I have to say, it was like a spiritual battle going on. We ended up moving to my aunt and uncle's home. In Winchester, they graciously opened up their home to us because my mother had nowhere to go at this time. My uncle and my aunt, they were working and they had their own business. They were pretty well off. They had a beautiful property. It was a ranch, we call it El Rancho. It was a one-story flat, and with 3 houses in the back. The only people who would come were those who lived there. Around 1995, I was 13 or 14 years old. My uncle passed away. It was very unexpected. He had gotten into a car accident. It was pretty tragic. He actually ended up on the news. We didn't know what to make of this, or how to move past this. He was a pretty big part of our family. He had such a huge personality. He was a father figure to a lot of people. Especially me during that time, it was very hard. 2 months later, or still getting over his passing. This happened early in the morning. I was sleeping. I heard 3 knocks. It was like somebody knocking on the door. It wasn't fast, it was like a normal knock. The first one was like knock. The second round got a little bit louder. Third round got a little bit louder. I was awoken up by the second 3 knocks. I was just laying in bed. I was looking around. I knew that it was very early. I didn't hear birds chirping. I didn't hear the dogs barking. Again, I hear 3 loud knocks. I'm looking around and I'm scared. I'm just thinking to myself, am I the only one who's awake? Am I the only one who's hearing this? I turn to my cousin who's laying next to me. We shared a room. I go to wake up my cousin. I push her. She does not wake up. I hear 3 loud bangs again. The door that these bangs are happening on, they're on a security gate. This door is really sensitive. You can hear a tap, or if you close it, it vibrates throughout the whole house. My cousin is not waking up. I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on this early in the morning? It's a house full of people. I slowly walk out. I peek my head out into the hallway, and I look. I'm quiet. I didn't say anything. I'm just looking to see if anybody else is hearing it. In this property, when you walk out into the hallway, I have turned left. You immediately come to the kitchen on your left, and then to the right is the door. In the kitchen, there is a bar countertop with 3 bar stools, and the very first one. And the end was my uncle's favorite chair. I'm walking slowly throughout the house. I walk over to his favorite chair, and I sit there. During this time, while I was walking, I didn't hear any more banging or knocking. I was like, okay, I'll just sit here and wait. I don't know what that was about, but I'm the only one awake so far. I sit down and I look around, confused, but also waiting for something. Then again, I heard 3 loud bangs, and this time they were so loud it was like gunshots. I jumped out of the chair. I was terrified. I ran over to the door. I opened it, and I opened the security gate. There was nobody there. My uncle's favorite dog was outside. He was just walking towards me. And then he turned his head. He must have seen something. I'm guessing it was my uncle. He jumped up and he was extremely happy to see somebody. That wasn't there. I had no idea. Nobody that I can see was there. He was jumping up and down, wagging his tail. And this is a very lazy dog, he does. Doesn't really give attention. Unless it's somebody very specific. I was just very focused on that. It was hard for me to process everything that was going on. My uncle, who was staying with us, ended up opening the window after this had transpired. And he goes, "Do you see that?" I go, "Yeah, I see that." He's just dumbfounded. He's just looking at me with his mouth open. I just stand there finally. Everyone slowly starts to wake up. My aunt comes out. What was that? Or what's going on, my cousin, who previously I tried shaking awake. She comes over to the kitchen. Everyone has this like, "What's going on?" look on their face. They're asking questions, and I said, "You guys didn't hear those 3 loud knocks." My tia, who knows far more about spirituality and what certain things mean than I do. She says, "Wait, how many knocks?" I said, 3 knocks. She just stood there and she goes, "Why did you open the door? Why didn't you come and ask me?" And I was just, I don't know. I was so confused, and I was like, did I do something bad? My tia, she just stayed quiet. She wasn't mad at me. She was mad at what was going on. She stood quiet. My cousins looked at me and they're like, "You don't know what that means?" And I go, "No, I don't. I personally think that I was targeted. Everyone else was put to sleep." She had a maid who's still alive, by the way, who practices Santeria. She would do these little rituals. I was there to witness them, to see them. So after this event transpired that night, she was called by my aunt to come back because she was visiting family, either in Mexico or in Los Angeles. She explained to her what happened and what's going on. "You need to come. You need to cleanse the home. You need to do something because I know something's off." My aunt was like, I knew something was going to happen because she was gone. I don't know the background and what was going on, but I knew that they would do veneration spells or ask Mythia's maid to conjure in spirits or get consultations through people that they trusted in the spirit world. Now I know some people, or those that are listening, may feel like that's not possible, but it truly is. There are people out there who can invite spirits into them. She was that person. She was the one that was cleaning, and she was organizing. And then all of a sudden, she would faint. And then it would be somebody completely different. She was just only Spanish speaking, and she would start talking perfect English, like in a deep voice, like a man's voice. I would just yell, "Tia Blanquita fainted again." She knew exactly what that meant, though I was a little scared of her. My aunt and uncle spoke to her in Spanish. Whenever she would say something, my cousins would have to translate. It was in perfect English. That really threw me off. I was scared. That was the very first time I had ever seen anything like that. I had never experienced seeing any sort of ability to that degree before. Like I've heard of maybe a witch or something and stuff like that for Halloween. But I just never understood the gravity or the level of abilities that some people may have. I'm here at the house and I'm scared because I have no idea what's going to happen. All I know is that I would hear cabinets open and close. My cousins were afraid to go, use the restroom by themselves. The tension in the air and what everyone was feeling was just scared. My aunt was upset, but she told me, "You might have let in a demon." She goes, "You've never heard about not opening doors, especially when doors are being knocked. And there's nobody there, somebody's knocking. And of course, we're in the middle of nowhere." I thought it was maybe family or something. The maid comes back and she walks in the door, and it reminds me of that scene from Poltergeist where the psychic comes through the door. She just looks around. and she has a very serious look on her face. She asks my aunt what she's been experiencing. And just to go back a little bit, it took her like 5 days to get back from where she was at, because she was visiting family. So she wanted to spend her time. How do we fix what's happened? Because I don't want to live in fear anymore. She goes, I can't even go into my bedroom because I feel like somebody's watching me. Couldn't take a shower alone. I had to ask my cousin to come to the restroom with me, to sit down, because I was so scared. Everyone had that same feeling. So the maid she has, I guess one of her spirits that she communicates, that comes through her to my aunt, ends up coming to her like an hour within who she's at in the house, from when I was told she's a nun. She's a nun who had passed away, maybe in a different century. She basically says somebody sent something to you. I guess my aunt and uncle had a lot of people that were jealous of them, of their success, that also practiced or dabbled in maybe some black magic. They waited for whatever low vibrational or dark entity to be sent to her home. Of course, me being the vulnerable one, I was the one who opened the door. And I don't live with guilt. It was just more of not knowing. Maybe a little bit of ignorance. No one ever talks about that. No one ever told me. Later on that night, the maid. She's cleaning, she's working, and she faints. It's my uncle. He starts speaking through her. You have to know that. Whenever a spirit enters someone's body, that person takes on their mannerisms. That person takes on their whole personality. That's who they are, how they walk, how they speak. Even her face changed. Everyone had their mouth covered and was crying. He said he didn't want to die. He came back, but he brought something with him. If you can travel, or if you can maybe hitchhike, or if spirits make deals, and I don't know, I always try to rationalize, thinking, why would he do this? Or is there something that might have followed him? Then again, knowing that somebody else sent it, that ended up making sense. The maid was walking around just like him, opened the fridge, started drinking the way that he drank. My uncle, he was a drinker. He enjoyed his alcohol. He started to drink. Or she started to drink. The maid started to talk to my aunt. He was just saying how sorry he was. And in mid-sentence, that's when she fainted. Once the maid ends up fainting, she's exhausted. She cannot do anything. She needs to rest, because it's so much energy that's being used. So she rests. The next day, she performs this ritual with a huge pan on the floor. She puts all these herbs in the middle. I had no idea what was going on. I just know that I was a part of it. It was just so interesting to see her gather up all these ingredients, and there were just flowers and herbs and different types of roses. I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay. I had a million questions. I'm like, am I going to get hurt, or what's going to happen? Everybody else pretty much knew. What she was doing was for the betterment. Me being newer and not being exposed to this at all. I was a little scared, but my cousin talked me down. This is so we can help move him out. Help move him on where he needs to go. I said, okay, if that's what it's for, I'm all in. She puts balm or incense into the pan, and there's a good smoke going. She starts singing these prayers, these words, and she's praying. Each of us had to walk over the pan, but in a cross. We walk up, walk back, and then go to the other side. So then it was like, you would make the sign of the cross. Each of us had to do that. After that was done, she had to go through each room, everywhere in the house, and do her thing. I didn't follow her even though I wanted to, because I was so interested in what she was doing. I just stood back. After that, she says, "Okay, give it time." Probably within an hour, the house felt so beautiful. Everything was lifted. Everything felt back to normal. Even though he had passed away, it didn't feel like anybody was there staring at me. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. I wasn't living in fear. We didn't hear things throughout the house. I was happy in that sense. But I was just sad because I let whatever was in. Even now, I have the conversation with my kids. If you ever hear knocks, if you ever hear anything at the door, you always look. You just don't ever automatically open the door. My kids always ask me why. Because sometimes there's things out there that are not good. That will come to your door and knock. Sometimes you won't see anybody. You might hear a voice, because that's happened before to my aunt. She's told me that something comes knocking on her door, and she's heard a voice, and there's nobody there. I just tell them always look, especially knocks in 3. Just being involved in my aunt's home and getting to know my aunt's maid, I ended up asking her questions. And since I don't know Spanish really well, I asked my cousin to ask her. She ended up telling me that when she lived in her country, she was a teenager, she was told that she's a schizophrenic because she would hear voices. She would see things. People just thought that she had either schizophrenia or she was undergoing psychosis. So she was cast out of her family for a while because she was experiencing all these things that she had no idea what was going on. One day she just couldn't take it. She ran away from home. She ended up on the streets of Mexico. She was just laying on the floor covering her ears. And she was saying, "No, Maz, I can't take this anymore." She said a woman came up to her, showed her hand, and she said, "You're not crazy. I see it in you. You have the gift to Tatianis Eldon." When she told me that, I got immediate chills. I was like, wow, she just saw you and saw that in you. She goes, yeah. She took me under her wing. And this was a lady that she's never met before. She just explained to her and she sat her down. She goes, "I'm going to teach you how to use your gifts, or else you're going to live your life feeling like you're crazy. You're most likely going to end up ending yourself because you don't know how to wield it into your favor." I was told by the maids that I had certain abilities. I feel like I might be clairvoyant or clairaudient. A lot of information comes through me, through dreams or through knowing. I've carried that with me. I hear those same thoughts in my mind, and it's almost like I'm not thinking them. If you want to share your story with us, head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. We'll get in touch to see if we can record it. To support our show and get episodes without ads, check out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. It's free for 2 weeks and then 4. $99 a month. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. 1. Please listen to the story. A Journey of Faith and Fear. I met my wife in 2004. We were married in December 2005. When me and my wife first got married, she was pursuing a career in the medical field. My mom also works in the healthcare industry at an assisted living facility in the town that we live in. She had told my wife, she said, "Hey, there is a lady that needs 24-hour care, but her family doesn't want to put her in a nursing home. They have went out and purchased her a house. They've added on a handicap accessible area, and the rest of the house would be yours. The only room that you would share would be the kitchen. You would need to cook for. Everything's paid for utilities. They're looking for people to move in and take care of her. Would you guys be interested in doing that? We thought about it. We're like, maybe that's a good thing. We could save a little money. And we agreed. We ended up moving out of our apartment. In January of 2007, moved in with this lady. This is where things started to change for us. This lady had one family member that was just really didn't jive with me. This woman was very dark. Depressing, if you will. She's never seemed to have anything good to say. Never had a smile on her face. She was never really a happy person. It was really sad, but we dealt with her. And the thing that this elderly lady that we took care of, she was legally blind. She was in a hover-round, basically. That's how she was able to get around. She'd get out of her chair and get to a mobility chair. Go to the bathroom. We would just be nearby in case she needed this. She couldn't really watch TV. She would listen to it. She really liked A&E. She would watch the whole entire block of programming every night. There was a show that started. It's called Paranormal State. It was about these college students. They would go to these houses where they felt like there was supernatural activities happening there. That's really, I think, who started experimenting. Things start coming. One night, me and my wife had left Wednesday night Bible class. We come home, we were in our part of the house, which was 3-bedroom to the living room. A 1 full bathroom with a double vanity, and then a half bath that had a stand-up shower toilet. So we're in the master bathroom, standing in front of the vanity, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. My wife said it got really cold. All of a sudden I said, yeah, I did. I don't like it. There's something in this house. Let's go to the living room. Let's pray. I turn on the living room light. Me and my wife both got down in the couch, on our knees, and start praying. We're rebuking the devil. I just remember stopping. I was listening to my wife. She was crying, face buried in the pillow. All of a sudden, I heard the loudest, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. I still hear it in my mind. Then there was a peace that I can't even describe that entered that room. I told my wife, I said, babe, it's gone. We went to bed, both slept like babies. That next Friday we had service. We had church. I stood up and I testified about it. What I didn't know was that night, this thing had left our house and went across the street. We had went to church with folks across the street. This man's name is Matt. Matt had heard my testimony Friday at church. He actually came over to my house. He told me that morning. He said I woke up out of a dead sleep. I thought somebody broke into my house. I went straight through the house, checked on the kids, they were fine. And he said something began to speak to me. After that had happened, we went on just business as usual. We just lived our life. We've went several years without anything happening, until I was at a funeral. A good, close family friend of mine lost his sister in a head-on collision. She died instantly. We were at the funeral home. There were 3 people that showed up, and they were witches. They looked at me almost like telepathically. Something spoke and said, "There's 3 of us." It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I just looked dead at these people. And I was just like, in Jesus' name. I never said anything to me. It was just a very wild experience. And I've never had anything like that happen since. We ended up moving it, just didn't end up working out. Taking care of that lady. We didn't have really any freedoms. We were young. and we ended up moving it into my grandma's house in Kailyn I. Everything was good. We didn't have any issues. Me and my wife were trying for children, and we'd end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars of fertility drug, fertilization, and all that stuff. And we were just like, okay, whatever, we'll just adopt. This man is an older gentleman out of Atlanta. Georgia preach, just a really amazing message. All about faith and healing. He was closing and said, if you believe that God's able to touch, and can you just come up here and let me pray for you right now? My wife, without hesitation, went up there. Pray for her. She heard a voice give her a date. So she went to her phone, puts the date in, and it was exactly 9 months. On the very day that it saved in her phone, she got a phone call from her friend that she worked with. She called me. She said, if you and your husband looking to adopt, my mother's friend has custody of her granddaughter. My wife hangs up the phone, and she just instantly starts crying. She goes, you ain't gonna believe this. And then she tells me that. She unloads that on me. I'm like, unbelievable. A week later, they called us and said, she has a half-sister that was just born. And we went from an emptiness to a fullness, like literally overnight. This is where it seemed like the activity picks back up again with us. When they came to be with us, they came out of a very horrible condition, a very horrible situation. In this family, there was a half-brother and half-sister that were in the occult practice. Witchcraft, and their dad had committed suicide. They also had 2 cousins in the same family. Father-son commit suicide. The dad committed suicide too. 3 years later, son committed suicide. This whole family line was completely played. It was just a very nasty, bad situation that these girls were brought out of. I started having these nightmares. I would be asleep and feel this dreadful, overwhelming fear come into the room. It's always the dark shadow. Figure of a man that walks to my side of the bed. It reaches for my throat. It tries to choke me. I am fighting with everything I got, just to say the name of Jesus. It takes every ounce of strength. Once I get the name out, then the hands receive. And I just keep saying it until I wake up. And I'll wake up in a full flesh fight mode. It started after we adopted our girls. And then I started traveling all over the United States, in Kailyn on Alta. I was working my first job out of town in Bradenton, Pennsylvania. I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express, right there on the river. I was sharing a room with a guy that worked night shift. But he wasn't there. I was turning in for the night. I got that overwhelming feeling of dread and terror come over me again. I watched this black figure of a man come through the door and get real close and start to grab my neck, start to squeeze. Again, the fight is on to get the name of Jesus out of my mouth. I have probably had one of these episodes from probably 2014 too. I think the last one I had was probably a few weeks ago. Pretty brutal. Me and my wife and my daughters were coming home. Who just turned down our road? There's a greenhouse on this country road, and there's a street light. On the opposite side of the greenhouse, there's a home. We had just turned at the light and started down our road when I seen this 10 or 11-year-old girl on a Razor scooter, widening right across the road. My daughters were like, "Dad, what is that?" The face is a pale. Dick looked like death. A dead face, pale, sunken. hollow eyes. It was wearing a jacket with fur around the face, staring right at us, and went right across the road and vanished into thin air. I stopped right in the middle of the street. The light actually dimmed as this thing crossed the road. I backed up, turned my brights on, shined them, because I was like, where did that kid go? There was nobody around. My wife said, just go to the house. It just makes you think, where do these things go? If you don't have the power to get rid of them, they just what? Do they just take up shop at your house? Do they just mess with you? Move. Moving on around August of 2021, my wife came to me and she said, hey, you ain't gonna believe this. I said what she said, I'm pregnant. We've been married, this is year 19 for us. I was excited and I couldn't believe it. I grew this house. I'm like, we gotta pass. We gotta buy a house. We ended up finding perfect house. Right there in the middle between church and work. It's perfect. She had moved in April 2022. Ate her first meal April 4th, 2022. Down the road from us, the trailer park. And there's a lot of bad activity that happens. This trailer park, a lot of drug use. A lot of meth cops are coming and going. My middle daughter, being the social butterfly that she is, she made friends with a girl that lived in the same apartment. She said, I want her to stay the night. I like to take her to Sunday school. I said, I work, that's fine with me. I don't care. This little girl comes over and we feed her a good meal. We're getting ready for bed. On a matter of fact, I'm in bed. These girls come running down the hallway, down to my room, busting my door like, yeah. He saw something. He saw this giant shadow walking down the hallway towards us. I said, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna go living room. We're gonna pray, we're gonna get rid of this thing. This little girl's looking at me. She said, I've seen this before. It's at my house. It changes colors. I looked at her. I said, honey. I said, I want to tell you something. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. You're gonna pray about it. I'm gonna help you. She's crying. He started praying. I felt that heaviness lift. I told him, I said, we're good. Y'all go to sleep. We'll see you in the morning. With the rampant drug use in this adjacent neighborhood, I believe that there's residual spirits that are out. I was sitting in my living room one night, minding my own business. But out of the corner of my eye, I seen something manifest in my kitchen. It was just a brief second. I was looking right into my kitchen. It went floating by, and it was another dead face that had just this ugly face. No eyes, just this ugly, dead-looking corpse on the face. And I've seen that twice. It's probably the start of this year. I was going to bed, and I got a big guard dog. He always lays next to my bed. He just starts growling, and I hear this. Right in my doorway in my closet. Am I really hearing this? I thought about David, and when David slew Goliath in the Bible, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fear whatever this is, because I got something greater. I just fell asleep, I just went to bed, and that was that. But I will tell you, there are good times that I've got up in the middle of the night, thinking my Lord and my will. One of my dogs have an accident in the house. I'll smell putrid, like absolute putrid smells, like what in the world? Like just pure death. I'll go look around, there wouldn't be nothing there. And I'm like, okay, I know what this is. Every time I'm just getting out of a prayer, that's why. I guess really why I wanted to share my story, because I've experienced this in High Amsterdam, and this is what I've experienced. Me, personally, I just believe it comes with the territory. It comes with what I'm doing. You can share your story with us by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. We're building a great community here, so thank you so much for your messages and reviews. You can support us and get the episodes without ads by trying out Scary, plus links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Chased by Spirits, my family's paranormal encounter. I grew up in this really tiny town called Cleveland, Utah. The house was known as the very first post office in this really small town when Utah was founded. It was so old that when we did some renovations on the house, we would cut into it and see that it was logs on the inside. That's how old it was. It was an old log post office. My mom and dad decided to create a bedroom in the attic space upstairs. They cut a hole in the ceiling and built these really rickety, steep kind of stairs that went up into this little attic space. The top right corner of the room would be where the stairs would come up. Right at the top of those stairs, in the bottom right corner, was my bed, up against the wall, right in that corner, right there across the room. In the bottom left corner would be my sister's bed, and then in the top left corner was my brother's bed. I used to see this really dark shadow every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody was in the room with me, watching me. I would open my eyes, and there would be this dark shadow standing over by my brother's bed. Staring down at him, it was the shape of a man, but it was just a really dark shadow. That would stand there. It would move from my brother's bed, and it would just float across the room, standing over the top of my sister's bed, watching her. If I felt myself waking up, I would keep my eyes closed and wait for my brother to move, or wait for my sister to move, and then I would open my eyes. Then he would be standing right by me, staring down at me, watching me sleep. I was so scared I would take all of my stuffed animals, put them all the way around me, and then I'd take the biggest stuffed animal that I had, and I'd put it right over the top of me and tuck it in to make it look like. The stuffed animal is the one sleeping in the bed. I think around in my teenage years, we moved out of that house, and I didn't have any other experiences growing up until later in life when I met my husband. We had all of our kids at that time, and he was stationed in the Air Force, and he got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. He got deployed to Korea for a year. One of the funny things about me and my husband, we were really into the TV show Ghost Hunters. There was this one episode where they went to the Stanley Hotel. It's the actual hotel that Stephen King himself was staying in when he had those experiences. That scared him so much that he wrote the book, The Shining. This hotel is over 100 years old in Estes Park, Colorado. It's gorgeous. On this episode, they decide that they're going to split up into these separate rooms in the hotel that are known for the most paranormal activity. In the hotel, one of them is on the 4th floor, room 412. Back to me and my husband. My husband is deployed to Iraq. I want to surprise him with something. Just pretty cool for him coming home. He's been gone for 6 months. I decided I was going to book us a stay at the Stanley Hotel so that we can go investigate ghosts. I decided to book that exact room 412. We drive to the Stanley, and you walk into this hotel, and there's this big staircase. It goes up the center, and then it splits off to the right and the left, on both sides, and you can go up to the other rooms. Next to the staircase, it has this really awesome, super old elevator that is, one of those metal elevators that you have to close the gate on. Old, rickety, and really loud. We get our key for the room, so we get in the elevator and we go upstairs. Step off the elevator, and the room that is haunted is right next to that elevator. We get in the room and go check out the closet. This closet is 100 years old, full hard wood. It's got one of those really old doorknobs on it that are really hard to turn. It's super heavy. On the backside of the closet is that elevator. We check that out. We check the room out. It was really pretty. It had a really old bathroom in it, the really super old Victorian sink with on the inside. We decided to go get some dinner and walk around the hotel for the rest of the evening until bedtime. So nothing happened to us that night. When we were walking around checking out the hotel, and we took the tour guide was this really cool, old guy that had actually done the tour for ghost hunters. When they came, he was their tour guide. We noticed that on our tour. The guy goes right up to the room we're staying in, stood outside of the door, and sit there and tell the stories about what happens in there. How people have lost things. Me and my husband are just sitting there thinking, yeah, we're staying in this room tonight. We even told the people that were on the tour with us. We're like, yeah, this is our room. We're going to stay in there. You guys want to look in there? And they were all pretty excited to go in and check out the room. And we ended the tour and went to eat dinner. And then we went back up to the room. And it was time for bed. We decided that we were going to go and take a shower. Together, we're in the bathroom, talking about how nothing's happened to us. It doesn't seem very creepy. There was 3 bulbs in this one light fixture above the bathroom sink. As soon as we were talking about this happening, the light bulbs all shattered. We got out of the shower and called downstairs. I told the lady at the desk what had happened. She said that they were going to send somebody up to come and take care of it. Things like that happen all the time in that room. I just don't know what could have caused that. They came up, they cleaned it up, they left the room, and me and my husband get into bed. And we're laying there, and I'm trying to go to sleep. This bed is facing the closet. So if you're sitting up in bed, you're looking right at the closet. I get this really dark, heavy feeling. There is something in this room. I open my eyes. I look up. Right above the bed is a fan. A ceiling fan? And right next to the ceiling fan, there is this woman floating there. She had a really long, dark hair. I'm looking at her. I start grabbing my husband's arm, shaking him, and I'm like, honey, do you see her? She's right there. And I'm hyperventilating. He wakes up, sits right up, and he's like, where? Where? And I'm like, she's right there in front of us. At that point, she starts moving towards me. And I take a breath and I'm like, hi. She stops, tips her head sideways. We laid down to go back to sleep, and I could not go to sleep. The morning after, we went downstairs to go tell the people that I had an experience. There's a tour guide there. And I tell her what had happened to me last night. And she kind of just, yeah, that happens all the time. It seemed like she didn't believe me, didn't take me seriously. We decided we were going to go look around the town and check out the hotel more. It's pretty big. It's got a few outbuildings too. We spent the day just being tourists. We get back to the hotel. My husband decides what he's going to do. is he grabs this little L, no smoking sign that is sitting on top of the dresser, and he's gonna put it right in front of the closet door. Slide it right under it just in case something happens. We go to sleep, and nothing else happens that night. The next morning, the closet door is closed, but the little L sign was out in the middle of the floor. I'm feeling really uneasy about staying in this hotel and room because we had one more night there. I call my mom. I'm bawling. I don't want to stay here. And my husband's being a sweetheart, sitting there telling me it's gonna be okay. We just got one more night. Let's just stay here. And I said, okay, we'll just stay because it was paid for that night. Actually, nothing happened to us. We just woke up and left to go back home. I would absolutely stay at the Stanley Hotel again. The hotel was beautiful. The food was amazing. From their little old-fashioned restaurant. And the rooms were really comfortable. Really scary, but really comfortable. I would not stay on the 4th floor again. Not at all, not in any of the rooms on the 4th floor. Forget it. Throughout our marriage, we have had quite a few paranormal, inexplicable things that have happened. After we went and stayed at the Stanley Hotel, we had moved out of the house that we were staying. At the time, we moved on to base housing at Hill Air Force Base. Cabinet doors would open and close. You would hear whispers or voices throughout the house. When I was in my room laying on the bed, I would be reading, and right above the book, I would see this little boy's head just quickly dash past the bottom of the bed. One other instance. Me and my husband were laying in our bed watching TV. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that was in our bathroom, fell off of the shelves into the bathtub. Another time that I was laying in bed, all of a sudden, I felt these little steps stepping next to me, from my feet all the way up to my head. And I turned and I looked, and there was nothing there. We decided that we wanted to name this little ghost. And I'm like, how about we name him Billy? At that exact same time, my husband said that in his head popped the name Billy. After this house, we had moved off a base. It was Halloween, and we felt this ghost presence had followed us. Because same thing started happening in this other house. I took my kids to go see my mom for Halloween. While we were there, I was on the phone talking to my husband, and all of a sudden he says, there was a little boy that just ran across the floor, down the bed, out of the corner of my eye. The kid ran across the room. We're sitting there talking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear in the living room the sound of one of my Halloween decorations go off. This Halloween decoration, it was broken. The motion active part of it was busted, and it was an old gravestone that would crack open and scream at you. The only way for it to go off was for somebody to push it. We moved to Montana. We had a bunch of things happen in that house. My children saw these things. My son Lincoln, he is very sensitive. A couple of days ago, I was in my room. My son's girlfriend. I was going to show her something on my phone. I was walking down my hallway, passing the kitchen, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my son standing in the kitchen. In front of the sink, his back was to me. I thought, okay, I'm going to go show Lincoln first. When I turned to look into the kitchen, he's not there. He is not there. There is nobody there. He comes walking in through the family room. In the back door, I explained to him, this ghost or mimic or whatever this was looked just like him. I have no idea what that was. But it scared the crap out of me. That's the first time something's happened to me, personally, in this house. I'm hoping nothing else happens here. I'm almost over the whole ghost thing. Haha, balding. We have had other situations where we would be sitting out on the porch. We live up in Willow, Alaska. It's a really tiny town in the middle of the forest. We have neighbors that aren't very close to us. We would be sitting out on the porch, and you would hear strange howls, moans, and growls over in that forest. Over there, across the lake, we're avid hunters. We know what it sounds like when a moose is in heat. Just doesn't sound anything like that. Me and my son and his friends, we always talk about shapeshifters up here all the time. Skinwalkers is a big deal in Alaska. A skinwalker can take certain forms of people or things. I don't know if it could have possibly been something like that. I can't tell you. I really have no idea what it could possibly have been. I don't know if it's the places that we've lived in, or if it's because my side of the family, is so sensitive to ghosts, or if it's Lincoln himself. If he attracts these things coming to us everywhere that we've been, in all of the houses that we've lived in. I haven't really been very scared, even though we've had these experiences happen to us. Every time I'm thinking that we're in a new place, it's going to be great. There's nothing going to happen. Then something happens. You can share your story with us over at True, Scary Story.com, and to listen without ads, and support the show at the same time. Visit scaryplus.com. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you soon. Everyone, please listen to the story Ghosts of the Beach House, a Family's Encounter. Growing up, I had a lot of paranormal experiences. They were super subtle sensitivity to energies, noticing things in the home, hearing things when I was growing up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, if you're unfamiliar with the place. There was a lot of battles that happened. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, there's a lot of paranormal activity. They do a lot of Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactment. My grandfather was a home inspector. He would take me on a lot of his home inspections, and he would tell me scary stories about the property. We would hear footsteps, and one time he was in a foyer of an old colonial home. A pot flew across. A lot of the times his equipment was moved. One time I was with him, we came back inside the house. I looked down on the floor. The door was open. There was 2 muddy handprints, and 1 muddy footprint for about 6 or 7 steps, as if somebody was crawling, because they didn't have a leg anymore. All of this was fun, and games for me, until I had the experience I'm about to tell you about. It happened a couple of years ago, in a different location, Topsail Island, North Carolina. Topsail Island, it was a massive hub for pirates. People think that they can still see Blackbeard's ship on the horizon. People also think that it might be the last resting place of Blackbeard's treasures. Topsail Island has a significant amount of energy. I had none of this information. When my family booked a vacation in Topsail, they were renting the beach house. When my family booked this vacation, I did travel all the way from Pennsylvania. Down to Topsail, I was already pretty tired. The drive was a couple of hours. For 6, I think, my boyfriend at the time. He picked me up, drove me all the way down. I slept a little bit in the car, but I was still really, really groggy. When I arrived at the beach house, it was not scary at all. It was a white house on stilts. The area surrounding was very swampy, but nothing that alerted me to anything. It was about 2-ish o'clock in the morning. I had just woken up. I was super groggy. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm locked on the door. My grandfather, he opened up the door. They both were whispering. They were tired. No one else was in the house. We said our greetings. It was cordial. Come in, okay? Thank you. Let's go to bed. My grandparents requested that my boyfriend and I sleep in separate rooms. They pointed me to the back room where I would sleep. It was through the kitchen. His room was closer to the front entrance and had a loft bedroom upstairs. I remember going into that room and feeling the heaviest weight I have ever felt in my entire life. This should have sent off some sort of ringer in my head, but it didn't. I was so tired, it was this really dense, thick smog kind of feeling. The feeling that hits you in the center of your chest, on your back, on your shoulders. I completely ignored it, and I had no other thoughts in my mind. Just unpack your stuff and get to bed. And I was unpacking these. These thoughts were not my own. I felt the energy of my past relatives. My great-grandmother was there. My great-grandfather was there. My great-aunt, they were there to protect me, to take care of me, and I just ignored it. I picked the bed, and that was closest to the back patio. I fell asleep. Enough time had passed. We are creeping into the 3 o'clock hour. We are creeping into the witching hour. I don't even know how long I was asleep. I was woken up by a pressing into the bed. I was not shook. I was not nudged. Nothing fell. I was pressed. Like somebody had put their hands on either side of my chest and pressed me into the bed. It was constant, it was rhythmic and very heavy. I could feel the sides of the pillow curl around my head. My head was being pressed into the bed. Of the pillow was touching the sides of my face. I've had sleep paralysis before. This is not sleep paralysis. I was hit with that overwhelming feeling. My relatives are there. It was a chatter. It was very noisy in my head. I remember being unable to move. I opened my eyes. It was an operation. 6 inches from my face, it was the blackest black, but also had outlines I could tell was a woman. Her eyes were sunken in. They were pitch black. Her hair was floating. It was gray. It was coming out at all ends like Medusa, like she was in water. Her mouth was open like a snarl, latching onto somebody wide open. Her teeth were all sharp. She had white markings on her face, 2 that were going vertical, 1 on her forehead to her hairline, 1 down her chin, and 2 horizontal on the sides of her cheeks, as if somebody had put their fingers in paint and smeared them across their cheeks. This encounter seemed to go on forever. It felt like time had stopped. I was absolutely paralyzed. I remember sitting there in complete and utter fear, staring at this figure. I remember feeling like my breath was taken out of my chest. She was pulling it from me. I remember trying to scream and not being able to. I knew that. My own essence was starting to get compromised. All of a sudden, at once, I remembered that what you do in these moments is you remind the entity that you are the one that's alive. I shut my eyes and I started screaming. I'm alive, you are not. I'm here, you're not wanted here. All the while, I felt like my family was there. They were fighting this with me. It was completely chaotic and not of my own imagination. Suddenly, she was gone. The chatter stopped. The pressing stopped. I could breathe again. I could talk again. I ran into my boyfriend's room at the time. I remember saying to him, I either had a very vivid dream or I just saw a ghost. He had also had his own apparition that he experienced at a different time and a different location, and he went, oh, okay. Well, let's go to bed. I remember going to bed that night and not believing it. The next morning, I woke up and I told my family. I was very vague about it. They joked about it and went, "Oh, maybe it's haunted," and I was like, "Okay, maybe," and we moved on with our day. They didn't take me seriously at all. Even though my grandfather had had experiences in his past, as well as my grandmother. She even captured an apparition in Fredericksburg with her camera sitting in a pew. My family is relatively sensitive, but we have never dabbled with anything that was dark, deliberately messing with us in any way. We went out, learned all about the pirates and tops and everything. That night, we as a family were playing Monopoly. The kitchen table was right next to my bedroom door. It was just fine. We had lots of laughs. And my grandmother said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to bed," and my boyfriend was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. It's just my grandfather and I in the kitchen, cleaning up the board." He goes to my door. He stops and he stares. He looks back at me and says, "You're right. The pressure changes at night," and I went, "Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend the night there. I'm not going to sleep in that room. Never again." He went, "I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you." And I spent the night within my boyfriend's room, who had a twin bed. It wasn't an ideal situation. The next morning I wake up, and I hear my grandmother from the top of the stairs say in almost a joking way, "Baka saw the ghost." And Baka is the name that I call my grandfather. I went, "What?" She was joking. But my grandfather, he was really shaken. He comes downstairs. He says at about 3 a.m, he was woken up by being pressed into the bed. This is a detail that I did not tell him. When he woke up, he kept his eyes closed and he turned over to my grandmother, who was to his right. He said annoyingly, "Pat, why? Why are you waking me up? She's still kind of asleep." "Doug, I'm not doing that." In that moment, he hears his wife's voice next to him. He opens his eyes. He sees a tall, black, shadowy figure in a top hat, sitting in the chair at the foot of the bed. He said to her then, "Who is sitting in that chair?" When she woke up, he turned to her. It was gone. I decided to sleep in the same room as my grandmother. I remember having the light on the whole time and having this unmistakable pressure surrounding me, constantly like chatter in my head, static around me. The energy was off, and my eyes were fixated on the foot of the bed. The moment that 3 a.m. passed, I turned over, looked at the clock, and I think it was 3:05, 3:10. Suddenly I was able to fall asleep. We told the owners of this house what had happened. They said, "Oh, you've never had any ghost encounters before." So I put it to bed, whatever that was. That was very much real. It became my ghost story. During COVID, I was flipping through some streaming service. There was some documentary style on sleep paralysis. They showed a picture of a sleep paralysis demon called the Old Hag. It was an artistic rendering, I think done over 100 years ago, and I froze. It's exactly what I had seen that night. There are other renderings of the old tag. That didn't quite fit the bill, but this one did. The sunken black eyes, the open mouth, the vampiric teeth, the floating gray hair and the pressing on the chest, and it sent shivers up and down my spine. I found out that there are predominantly 2 sleep paralysis demons that have been known throughout centuries, throughout millennia, and across the world. everybody's stories are exactly the same. It is pressing into the bed, stolen breath, something staring at you. The old hag sits on your chest, and the other one is called the Shadow Man. Shadow Man stands at the foot of your bed. He's oftentimes seen wearing a top hat. Putting this together, I realized I had seen the old hag. And the following night, my grandfather had seen the Shadow Man. We had no previous experience or knowledge of this. We were just two people that have had paranormal experiences before. Maybe these demons latched onto us that night because we were open. I have made certain that I am not as vulnerable as I was. That night, I found out that some people have had recurring visits from these demons, and it often happens because they are so vulnerable. I don't know if it was just age, but I have been way more receptive to the paranormal. I can see things, apparitions, and Elisa's story continues right after this. Stay with us. My ex-partner I was living with a couple of years ago. He was a big skeptic when I told him this. He would shrug it off. One night, I was really trying to understand, what is this? Is this something that I have now? What is this? I was woken up by him screaming in bed, shrieking. I turn over, I see him. He pushed himself up on the bed, trying to get away from something. He was staring at the door. He told me I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure standing in the doorway with a hat on. I don't know if he experienced the Shadow Man at that one point, but ever since then, he's only had brief experiences with hearing his grandfather, his grandmother. One time he saw his grandfather in a car door, but he's really had nothing significant since then. There was an apparition attached to an old, vintage vanity of mine that I've had for years. It was an elderly woman. This person was in my house at the same time. We looked up and he went, "It's a woman. Older woman, tall." I went, "White hair, Victorian." He went, "Yes. She's good, though she's just lost." I have actually been able to help a friend who lost her husband, unfortunately, to suicide. This was completely unintentional. I was chatting with her at a pool party. She started opening up to me, and suddenly her past husband was there. I was able to tell her things about him that she had not told me. I knew where he was touching her and how he was touching her. She started breaking down and crying. I don't know if that experience with that demon changed something in me that made me more open. But you bet I sage my house every day. I don't ever sleep on my back anymore. I just don't want to recreate that night. But it does seem that once these sleep demons enter your life, you become a little bit more attuned to the paranormal, I guess. Just had a lot of significant encounters since then. I used to live by an old iron mill, and I watched my dog get spooked by something, and at the same time I felt that pressure. The other night, I watched my other dog alert to the corner of a room where we have kind of an altar for my deceased dog that just passed. I watched him stare in that corner and alert to it, try to smell the air, and once again, I felt that pressure, but it was positive. When it passed over me, I felt a wind on my face. I just have a lot of these experiences nowadays, that it seems kind of normal. That veil has been thinned in a way. Still to this day, I haven't had any more encounters with her. I don't want to have any more encounters with her. Maybe I wasn't the right kind of energy she wanted to feed off of. People will chalk it up to, "Oh, you were sleeping," and if you do some research on it, People don't actually know what sleep paralysis is. They don't understand why it happens. If someone has experienced sleep paralysis before, they know that it's completely different than being manipulated and seeing a demon. That was very different. I don't know if I can find that picture, but if you Google old hag demon, somebody put this depiction in a nurse's outfit. It's like blue-purple colored is the hue of the painting, just the way that her mouth is open and her hair is standing on end, and how she's touching whomever she's sitting on. It's very similar to what I experienced. I don't know the origin. We have all of our theories on what demons could be. My personal theory is that demons are spirits that are stuck, that have been stuck for so many years. They become poltergeist and become demons. That's just my personal theory. Whoever the old hag and the shadow man are, they are ancient. They are millennia old. If you do some digging, you can find that there are encounters that people have had that are centuries old all across the globe. For me, that just validates it even further. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Let me know in the comments or through Instagram. I'll leave my contact information in the description of this episode. I'm on there as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. And if you have a story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Communications subscribers, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone that has tried Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Farmhouse Nightmares. Some memories never fade. She was just a child when it happened, alone in the dark, unable to move. She heard it, and she knew she was not alone. My name is Edwin, and here is Liz's true scary story. My name is Liz. This situation happened 1976. I was 8, my older sister was 10. Back then, my parents divorced, so we had to go into the foster care system. The night that we left, we had to go to what they call an emergency shelter. Home. We grew up in the city, so here we are driving like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's all farmland. It was dark. You've got one house. Another house, you won't see it for another couple miles. That's where Mr. and Mrs. Moore lived. They lived in a farmhouse. Looked very scary the night we got there, of course. But as the days and weeks and months went by, we actually really enjoyed ourselves there during the day. It was nice because they had horses and they had chickens, and we played outside. Every night Mrs. Moore would say goodnight to us, and then she would close her bedroom door and, she would go to her room. At the time that this happened, it was myself, my sister, a young girl, and her brother. The 3 of us girls shared a big bedroom, and the young boy was in another room. So it's a 2-story farmhouse, and you go up the steps. Straight ahead was her room. So you open the door, and to the right is where the young girl would sleep. Then, to the left would be my bed to the left, and my sister's bed on the right, with a window in the middle against that wall. That night, I don't know why, I felt just unease. I couldn't sleep. And when I think about it now, I think, did I sense something? My head is turned to the right with my left ear exposed, meaning I didn't have the sheets over my face or anything. I couldn't sleep, but I had my eyes closed. And then, all of a sudden, I see the shadow, but look to be of a man come in the room. come straight and then turn left, coming either to my sister's side or my side. I can see that, but yet my eyes are closed, and I know I was not sleeping. I couldn't scream, I couldn't cry, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't move, I was frozen, but I could just see it coming. It started to hover down over me. Now this shadow was darker than dark. Like I said, there was a window. The moon was out and you still couldn't see the shadow. And he was tall, very tall. So he hovers over me, and he starts to get closer and closer. And then he starts whistling in my left ear, and each time he whistled, I could feel him getting closer. And then he touched me. When he touched me, which felt cold, I woke up. It was like I was in this trance. And then I woke up, and I started screaming, and I was crying. Mrs. Moore comes in, turns on the light, and she says, "What the devil's going on here?" I said, "There is a man here." He whistled in my ear, and he touched me. "There is a man here." I just kept repeating it and repeating it. She thought it was nonsense. She didn't believe me. My sister and the other girl just their eyes were kind of big, wow. You know what's going on? She said, "I'll go to bed. Enough of this nonsense." And she said, "And who opened the door?" And I said, "He did. He opened the door." Still, she didn't believe me. So she closed the door and she went back in her room. Of course, she turned off the light. And my sister says to me, "Liz," she says, "I believe you because I think it came to me first." I'm crying and I wiping the tears off my eyes. And I said, "Well, why didn't you say something?" And she said, "Well, I didn't think anybody was going to believe me." She tells me that she sees the shadow, and she, too, said it looked like a man, a very tall man. It's coming towards her, which is weird because I can see it coming towards me. And she said she was holding on to her sheets, and she wanted to cover her face because it was starting to hover down over her. She said it took everything she had to put the sheets over her head, over her face. And she said when she did that, what woke her up was me crying and screaming. I never saw it again, but other things have happened. It just was not the Shadow Man. My first encounter with what I may call the paranormal happened probably a year before my parents separated. I was home alone with my baby sister. My dad was working. My mom was working at night from time to time. She cleaned offices at night, and I remember her taking my older sister with her. Now, nowadays you're going, okay, wait. She's 7 years old. No one leaves her 7-year-old like that. But back then, in the 70s, anything happened. We were in this apartment. And just to kind of give you a visual, there was a living room. Then there was a small little dining. And right across from it was a kitchen. And then, straight ahead, to the left was my parents' bedroom. Then down the hall was our bedroom, and the three of us shared it. That night, I'm sitting in the living room. The couch was on one side of the wall, and I was watching TV kind of sideways. Sitting on that couch, and my sister was on the floor. She was playing. I think I might have had a blanket on the carpet for her. I needed to get her a diaper. I got up, and I went straight down the hallway into our room, opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, to the right of that room is our closet. And when I opened the door and turned on the light, that closet door was shaking. It was trembling and I'm looking at it, I'm scared. Of course you know. I'm 7 years old. I'm scared. And I quickly go straight to my sister's crib, grab a diaper, close the door, didn't turn off the light, nothing. I just closed the door and I ran back in the living room. Of course I'm starting to cry a little. I changed her diaper. And I'm sitting there, and I can recall watching the Sonny and Cher show, and I'm sitting there watching that, and trying not to think about what I just saw, just praying that my mom would hurry up and come home. As I'm sitting on this couch, I'm on each side of the couch with one end, table on one side and table on the other side. All of a sudden, to the right, on that table, and I looked at it like, what was that? Then, all of a sudden, to the left, the end table on the left side of the couch, it knocks again. And I'm like freaking out by then, knowing that something is wrong here. And all of a sudden, it starts knocking underneath the couch. I jumped off and I got on the floor, started tearing, but I don't think I was crying, like out loud, because I didn't want to scare my baby sister. When my mom finally comes home with my older sister, as soon as she opens the door, I run to her and I'm crying, and she's saying to me in Spanish. She says, "Mijita, ¿qué te pasa?" which is honey. What's wrong? I started telling her. The closet door in the bedroom was shaking. This table was knocking, and then it knocked again on this table, and then it knocked under the sofa. I guess because we're Hispanic, and we have that background of beliefs in the paranormal and all these other things. And the thing she asks is how many knocks, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like 3. 3 on this table, 3 on that table, and 3 under the couch. And then she proceeds to tell me, which now when you think about it, it's like, okay, why would you tell me that? Mom, at like 7 years old. And she said, well, that's the devil. Thinking back on that, with knowledge I have of some things, that's mocking the Holy Trinity. So you know when you're 7 years old, you're not going to make up a story of 3 knocks each. And that was the first time that an encounter of, for me, I call it evil. I call it evil. I've had many evil encounters, but I've had other types of paranormal encounters. Just maybe not necessarily all bad. That one, though, was bad. The next story would be when we left Mr. and Mrs. Moore's house and found like a permanent foster home. We actually stayed the most with Mrs. Moore's best friend, Mrs. Clark. She was a widow. Her husband was the local pastor, who had passed away long time ago. We came to love her and her huge family. I mean, she had like 7 grandkids, grown kids, and she did open her home to other foster kids. Not just me and my sister. And my sister, again, is my older sister. My younger sister stayed with my mom. I think we may have had a 4th of July party. We had to walk down this road. Very dark road again. It's that same road, it's dark. It's farmland. And we were walking. Maybe there's about, maybe 10 of us, towards what I call like a fork in the road. Because half of those kids lived on the other side of that road. And in this fork of the road is where our church was, our Baptist church. And there's a graveyard next to it. And these other kids that needed to go to the other side of the road, all they had to do was just kind of like walk in the grass of the church to go to the other side, so they did that. The rest of us stayed on our side. You know, we said our goodbyes, and then all of a sudden, someone said, "Look, what is that?" We all looked, and he was pointing at the sign where it has like the church services. But it was a pretty big sign because there was still a lot of room for it, just being like concrete. The sign did not cover all of that, but he was pointing at that. As soon as I looked and my sister looked, and I can only speak for the two of us, we saw this shadow, and the shadow got bigger. And then it opened up what I call like wings. What we saw, these two red eyes. We all screamed, and we just ran. The kids on the other side of the road were running to their house. We were running back to our house. We went home, and we told Mrs. Clark and everyone that was still there. Of course they didn't believe us, and I never saw it again. But I'd never walk at night there again either. What I think we saw may have been a Mothman. This was Pittsburgh, Maryland. The Mothman came out of West Virginia, and I'm not too far from West Virginia here. It is possible that this thing travels. And now, when I think about it, and I hear the story of Mothman, like the real stories, I think, well, maybe that is what I saw that night. Fast forward. I'm about 12 years old. We are back with my mom. So it's the four of us, my mom, my older sister, myself, and my younger sister. And we are living in a, townhouse. These were brand new townhouses. I don't know when this started, but I can tell you by the time I was 12 years old, I was trying to debunk anything that I've heard, or seen, or happened, or my sister says, hey, this happened, or my mom says something. I'm like, number. I refuse to believe this. I'm not going down that rabbit hole again. Until it happened to me. A few things that had happened. For example, to my mom. And I didn't know this until years later. In the townhouse, there's 2 floors. You walk in, there's a dining room. Then there's a kitchen, little hallway. Living room, you go up the steps. Turn right, and to the left, there's 2 bedrooms. To the right, there's a bigger bedroom. That was my mom's bedroom. And there was a shared bathroom that had 2 doors. You know, when you come in you can go in from either way. My mom told us years later that, one night, she was reading her Bible. I get the feeling she was having things happen to her. They always did, but I think things were still happening to her at that time. And she started reading the Bible more frequently. That one night, she said her bed shook. I mean, it shook. That happened to her in that bedroom. Now, years later, we all kind of switch bedrooms, and the 2 of us already shared that big bedroom. One day, my younger sister was with her best friend in our bedroom, and they were playing and stuff. And then all of a sudden, they're hearing sounds coming out of our closet. Things kind of like moving. A belt moving that was hung up. You know, wasn't like on the floor or anything like that. They ran downstairs and said, there's something in the closet. And I was like, the bunker. I'm like, now there isn't. I went upstairs. I opened the closet. I see my belt hanging and, see nothing. And I said, it's all good. I ignored that. One time, the 3 of us went to my younger sister's best friend's house. Her parents weren't there. But we went over and we watched a movie, ate popcorn and things like that. Now, Heather had a dog, so the dog was with us. We're sitting in a game room, and it was near the kitchen. But you couldn't see the kitchen from where we were sitting. I remember that when we came in and went in the kitchen, there was the local newspaper on the kitchen counter. So we're sitting in the living room, minding our own business, doing our thing. And then all of a sudden you can hear a sound of, what sounded to all of us was, someone picked up the newspaper and threw it on the floor. The dog looked and started barking. My sister's best friend wasn't like, oh, paranormal or whatever, of course. We didn't call it that. Back then we did. We figured, okay, something's not right here. Is it following us from our house? Going back to our townhouse? I remember the one time I was in my bedroom, and my room was always very cold. Very cold. I had closed the door, and I was doing my algebra homework. A few minutes later, my mom comes up, and she tells me to leave the door open because the room is so cold, to let the heat circulate and stuff, so it would heat up my room. So she goes downstairs. She's downstairs with her boyfriend and my 2 sisters. I'm the only one upstairs. I'm on my bed, sitting on my bed, looking at my book, and I can see that my door shut, but it didn't clasp or anything. It came close to closing, but it didn't. But it moved so quickly, it just went. And I looked up, and I was like, okay, my sisters are pranking me here, so I ignored it. Finished my homework, I went downstairs, watched TV with the rest of the family. And I said, okay. By the way, I said, which one of you tried to close my door? And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, Mom told me to leave the door open. She left it open, and I did. I said I could see that my door went to shut, but not all the way real close though. Like I would have seen someone's hand on the doorknob if they were trying to close the door. I didn't see anything. And they're like, Liz. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. None of us were up there. I looked at my mom because I know she wouldn't have lied. She wouldn't lie. And I looked at her boyfriend, and he's like, nope, nobody was up there. Now, when this happened, I no longer could ignore it. One Saturday morning, I was by myself at the house. By then, both my sisters had heard things upstairs. Like walking, I refused to believe it. That morning, I'm in the living room, I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden I can hear footsteps upstairs. They're pacing back and forth, back and forth. I ignored it well. Then it got louder, and I could hear it come and pace from that bathroom where there's 2 entrances. It was going from the hallway to the bathroom, to my mom's bedroom, back to the bathroom, back to the hallway. And I finally put the TV on pause. It would stop every time I would pause. I put the volume back on, and then this time, I put the volume even louder. The footsteps got louder, louder than the volume on the TV, as if it wanted me to hear it, so I put pause again. I did that maybe about 3 times. By the 4th time, I got really mad, and I got up and I went to the hallway, turned around to the bottom of the steps, and looked up to the steps at the top, and I said, okay. I've had enough, I said. If you're here, then show yourself. I can hear the steps creaking, and I can hear each step that was being made. There was the creaking sound in, but you could hear like there were footsteps. By the time it became down like halfway, I was scared. I ran outside of the house and sat on the corner of my house, waiting for my mom and my sisters to come home. And when they came home, I told them. My sisters are like, see, we told you. There's something here. There's something here. I believed them after that. Fast forward. My older cousin, actually, his name is Edwin. He always liked coming over and hanging out with us, and his aunt, my mom. If I was 12, Edwin may have been, I don't know, a junior in high school maybe. He came over our house and he stayed there. We went out when we came home. It was nighttime. The lights all over the house were on. You can see it from the outside. You can see the kitchen light. You can see the hallway light. And we saw the lights, and we're like, why does everyone have all the lights on? And then we kind of like looked at each other. Not my mom, but us sisters. And we're like, I bet something happened. So as soon as we come up the steps outside, he opens the door and he's holding a bat. And he says to my mom in Spanish, he says, you have something here. There's something here. It keeps walking. We're like, yep, okay. That definitely confirms there's something there. We even had our neighbor 2 doors down. He came over. One night he was there by himself. We had gone out, and when we came home, Butch tells my mom, and we're standing there. We can hear him. He says, there's something in this house. He proceeds to say that you know. He's hearing footsteps. When you're talking me, my 2 sisters, my cousin, and our neighbor. That's 5 people that have heard things in that house. So, I mean, at some point we all moved. You know, we got older and we moved and all that. And I was glad to get out of the house. That house really creeped me out. But it was a brand new townhouse. I find out later that my mom had sought some help. Not sure whether it was what I call some sort of voodoo person, some sort of witch person. I don't know, but something like that. What she was told was it was her, that something was following her. You know, at that time I believed it, and I got mad. I'm like, it's your fault. You know it's following us. But quite honestly, you know, like I said, I'm 56 years old and I still have things that happen. Not to that degree, but things that you're thinking, okay, well, did I just hear my son's voice? Or did I hear someone just call me that sort of thing? But not every situation of the paranormal is bad. There's good things, and there's bad things. If there's a story that you want to share with the rest of us, head on over to TrueScaryStory.com and fill out the form to not miss out on the next week's story. Make sure you're following the show. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story encounters at the family home in the Philippines when I was 8. My grandparents built the house during the war. After it was built, my parents lived there. We were there until I was 16. The house was so huge and old. We have 2 floors, 2 living rooms, 1 downstairs and 1 upstairs. And we had a huge staircase. I would constantly get creeped out by the staircase. Even during the daytime, my mom would have helpers. We call them angels back where I'm from. Here in Canada, they're called maids. None of them would last. They would complain that in the middle of the night. They would hear noises in the kitchen. They would check up on it, thinking someone was there. None of them lasted long, and my mom didn't know what to do. She tried blessing the house, have a priest come there every other month blessing it. Nothing worked. My dad went off to work off country. My mom would work graveyard shifts. It was just me and my 6 siblings. I would constantly encounter a child. I think it was a boy I didn't know back then. I was certain it was a child. One time I was walking up the stairs. It was at 10 p.m. when I was in the middle of the stairs. I heard someone calling me. Not by my name, but it was calling me like that. It was a child's voice. I froze up in the middle of the stairs. I really hated sleeping in my room. It was huge. I felt like someone was watching me, especially during nighttime. Every time my mom told me, "Oh, let's all sleep in the living room," I was so happy about it, I went to my room. I share my room with my 2 other sisters. The bunk bed where I share with my sister was on the opposite side of the room. I sleep on top and she sleeps on the bottom. My eldest sister's bed, Nina, it was also on the other side. I grabbed my sister's bed, pulled it up. As soon as I turned around to face the door, I saw a child curled up on my second elder sister's bed. The bottom one, I froze there staring at it. It was black. It was curled up facing me, but I couldn't see the face. He was looking at his knees. I ran out crying to my mom as saying, "There's a kid on Alyssa's bed. Please do something about it." They all went to my room. They didn't see anything. There was this other time. We were all sitting on the dinner table. Nina, she told me I was about to sit on one of the chairs. She yelled at me saying, "No, don't sit there, someone's sitting there." I was like, "What? There's no one sitting there." I nudged it off. I thought she was just trying to scare me. I sat next to her. After a couple of hours, I went back downstairs again. It was just me. I was awake. I was going to grab a drink of water. I accidentally bumped onto the table, making the cup fall. It was a glass cup. It picked it up. I put it back there. And I thought it was so odd that the angels would leave the cup there. I was like, whatever. Grabbed my cup, went upstairs. And as soon as I was about to climb upstairs, I heard the glass fall. I remember vividly there were no windows open. There were no fans AC on. I ran upstairs. My siblings were so used to hearing things fall, or someone calling us when it's just us. We knew it wasn't their was, because it would be the voice of my aunts and uncles. When they were in America, we thought it was just normal hearing these things, because my neighbors would tell me. We experienced some of that things here at our house. So we were like, yeah, it's fine. There's a saying in the Philippines, if you acknowledge it, the stronger it will get. So we pretend it wasn't there. My siblings and I, even when we're together playing, we would hear someone calling us, not by our names, but going STST, when we would get creeped out. We would hear the voices of them calling us downstairs, when we're upstairs, or the room next to us, even though it's empty. My third encounter with the kid. I was eating in the dinner table. It was dinner time. Next to the dinner table was a hallway, a long hallway to the laundry room. We have this weird battery charger. It would constantly blink red or green. I had a feeling of someone watching me. Down that hallway in the laundry room. The room was pitch black. All you could see is the red light blinking. I quickly turned around. I saw a kid peeking through the door. It was a Japanese boy. He had a pale face and didn't have any eyes. It was just pure black. No expression at all. I started crying. My sister shaked me, saying like, "Hey, what's wrong, what's wrong?" And I pointed at the hallway, seeming like there's a kid there. My siblings were hesitant. One of the angels went over there, opened the lights and said, "There's nothing there," and for the rest of the night. They left the lights open because I was crying so hard. I know something was there. My other encounter, it was at the dinner table. I was eating when I looked down. I saw a kid looking directly at me, holding onto my knees. When I quickly looked back up, it was gone. At this point, I was around 12 or 15. I just brushed it off. It's been happening my whole life. We've been seeing things that would just run. Across the room, only I encountered the child. Allison's story continues right after this stay with us. The reason why I'm confident it was a child. My aunt, before she flew to America, she had her friend come over, and she didn't know she was a medium. someone that can see ghosts and contact the dead. When she entered the house, she felt dread. She was overwhelmed with sadness. She said, "There are spirits here. One is a child, one is a woman, and one is a man." She felt creeped out. She didn't know what to do. That's why I know what I was seeing. My sister, Nina, she encountered the woman the day before my mom's birthday, around October 27th, the night before. She was downstairs and back home. We call it terraces. It's just a huge backyard. It says terraces where people can get around. Think of it as a living room, but it's more spacious. There was a glass door, a huge glass door and wall, connecting the main living room and the terrace. It was around 10 p.m. All my siblings were upstairs. We had another maid, her name was. It was Atebeka. She was in charge of taking care of my little brother, Gabby, because he was still a kid back then. My sister, Nina, was downstairs fixing all the party stuff. She was hanging up balloons on the ceiling, banners, and at the corner of her eye. She saw Atebeka. It was odd, because all she was wearing was all dark. She was wearing black clothes, and she noticed she had only 3 fingers. She was staring directly at my sister. She looked just like Atebeka. She didn't bother with her. She went on, shrugging it off. She slammed herself onto the glass door, and my sister stopped. It wasn't strong enough to make the glass shake, but you would hear it. It was strong enough that you could hear it. My sister looked at her and said, "What are you doing? There's a door right there if you want to walk through it." She got annoyed, more than scared, when she went back onto doing the decorations. Second time, she slammed herself full body onto the glass. She got more irritated. She was like, "What are you doing? There's a door right there at the Becca, if you want to walk through it." She pointed at it, but the girl wasn't looking at anything else but my sister. Direct eye contact. The third time was after a couple of minutes. It was so hard that she said the glass shook to the point it almost broke. My sister got so mad. She ran through the door and it was gone. She was then creeped out and went to the maid's room. It was on the first floor. They were all wearing pink and bright colors. And they said, like, "Have you seen Atebeka?" "Number, she is upstairs taking care of Gabby." She said that's impossible, because she was just downstairs, watching me do the decorations. They were all so confused. She went upstairs, and Atebeka was upstairs in my mom's room. She was wearing a light blue shirt, pink pants. She got so scared. She started telling my siblings and Atebek that, "I saw you just downstairs wearing black. He had 3 fingers." She's like, "What are you talking about?" Another occasion, when my mom started believing us, is when Gabby was 4 or 5. He saw the woman again. This time, he was with Atebeka again, by the staircase. They were walking upstairs. Gabby told Atebeka to stop and move, because there's a woman walking upstairs. Atebeka got so scared, picked up Gabby and ran upstairs. Told my mom that your son is seeing things. That's when my mom was like, "Yeah. No, we're done. We're done." This was a week before my uncle visited us from America. They talked about it. He built another house somewhere far from here. We went to Project 6, and at the new house, it felt like a huge weight from my back was gone. I didn't feel like being watched. Then more I felt like, as if didn't need to worry so much or be scared. Around the house, before we left, the woman really made herself know that she was there. It wasn't my experience, but There was a picture of it. I wished I had that picture. In the downstairs living room, we had a huge mirror that, you know when you go inside a ballet's dance room, and there's a huge mirror just like that. We had one of those next to. It is all pictures of my aunts and uncles when they were children. One of the things that were standing out of it was a statue of a woman sitting down and a man playing a harp. Becca was taking pictures of herself on that mirror. She screamed so loud that my Nina and the other maid ran downstairs like, "What happened? What happened?" She was crying hysterically, saying, "There was someone next to me. There was a woman. It was a picture of an old Japanese woman. Next to her, all you could see was her face." My sister and the other maid tried to take pictures. Again, exact same pose, and where she was, thinking that they were just trying to prank them. And no, it was next to her. A woman with a pale face with red lipstick. She had no eyes. It was just dark. It was the traditional Japanese woman. Makeup, I know. This is because me and my younger brother, Miguel, were rough playing in the maid's room. And Becca was there. She said, like, "If you don't stop, this girl will take you." She showed a picture of it. At first we were confused and laughing like, "Yeah, you're just scaring us. That's not real." She told us, "Go ask the other maid and your sister." We went up to our sister and we asked. And she told us the story. I still remember the picture of that woman. It was very terrifying. I asked Becca if she would ever delete the pictures. She said no. She believed that if you delete the picture, you would set the spirit free. And what's stopping it from haunting her? Was that picture so after that? We finished packing up and left. Everyone left. My uncle put it up to sale, and there were new people that moved into that house. I just came back from visiting my aunts and uncles, and in the US I asked them, "How's the house going?" They told me the new owners were complaining about it. They just moved out too. It's just vacant at this point. No one wants to buy it. My grandpa was an architect. He built over a dumping site of Japanese corpses. He told me after we all moved out, if you have a story to share, head on over to True Scary Story, and fill out the form for ad-free episodes and more. Try out Scary Plus for free to get in touch. My details are in the description of this episode, and you can also follow our Instagram and TikTok over at scary.fm. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Rental House of Horrors. We were going to an event in Oregon to see my family. My mom had booked this Airbnb. We ended up getting there at nighttime. My mom and her best friend. When they got to the house, there was smoke coming out of the ground. Like if you were to have a fire pit, you would see the smoke. But there was no fire pit. It was smoke coming out of the ground. They don't know how it got there. They would pour water on it, and it wouldn't go away. My mom called the fire department. They checked on it, but by the time they came, it was out. It wasn't there anymore. It was a weird house. It was remodeled. It looks like they stuck two houses together. There was two kitchens, a bedroom on the opposite side of where we stayed. But what was really creepy was all the wallpaper in the house. Every door had a different priest name. Every single door. It felt like you were being watched. Like something was just right behind you, trying to shake it off. There was a lot of people in the house as well. So we go into our room on the left side of the room. I noticed there was a cabinet. It was covered by the roof. When they remodeled the house, It looks like they just cut that cabinet off. The cabinet was locked, and it gave me the creepiest vibes ever. I remember telling my mom, when we first came in the house, that I felt really weird and sick to my stomach. My mom felt it too. You could feel the house was off. It felt unsettling, like something was wrong, but you didn't know what was wrong. The first night when we went to sleep, my sister was acting weird and she normally sleepwalks. That's a normal thing for her. She got up in the middle of the night. When I woke up the next morning, I was the first one up in the house. It felt like someone was staring at me. I noticed the sliding glass door to the backyard. It was just open. There were leaves all over the kitchen and trailed into the bedroom that my sister was staying in. I remember just following, like, the leaves and being really confused, because it was 6, 7 in the morning. No one else was up. I closed the door and I locked it. I went over to my sister. I saw that there was leaves in her blanket and hair. When she woke up, I asked her what happened. Why are there leaves all in your blanket and your hair? Why are there leaves in the kitchen? Why is the door open? She said, I don't know. I woke up out in the woods last night. I think I slept walk. My sister said she felt super creeped out when she came to out in the woods. She was freaked out quite a bit. My mom was freaked out because she went out there by herself, and she doesn't know why she went out there. And I said, I told you I felt something creepy about this house when everybody found out. She went into the woods in the middle of the night, alone. Everyone was very shocked. We had been drinking the night before, so we just thought possibly it was that. She wasn't drinking that much. They were going to stay one more night. But I was going home because I had to work. But it was the last night. I had all my sisters in the room, and my mom. We were all like sitting in their room. My mom was sitting on one bed. I was sitting on the other. My sister was in the corner. My sister had her dog right next to her. He doesn't normally bark at random things. If he barks, it's because someone's at the door. Or he'll see somebody near the house and he'll bark. Then, we were all talking in the room, catching up. I was going to leave that next morning. We were talking about something that our emotions were going like. We were talking about an emotional topic. You could feel the density of the room get thicker. The energy in the room was changed. My sister's dog started whining, growling and staring in the corner of the room, by my mom's side of her bed. That's where, like, their bathroom was, too. He was growling at something. We could not see in the corner of the room. There was nothing there. He wasn't calming down. He was freaked out. I have never seen him like that. Bo the dog. I think my sister left him in the Airbnb alone. She had the screen door open to the sliding glass door. When we got home, Bo had ran through the screen door to get out the house. He was sitting in the backyard. He didn't want to go inside the house. My little sister was trying to get him back in the Airbnb. He didn't want to go. That was a very big indication that what I was feeling, it wasn't anything that I was imagining. We had to coax him back into the house, but he didn't want to go. He looked like he was in trouble. His tail was between his legs. His ears were back. He kept staying right behind my sister. My sister would go to the next room. He would immediately be right behind her. The dog happened the night before I left. I had gone home that next day. They all stayed another night. My mom called me the next morning. She sounded stressed out. She didn't sound like her normal self. She said, something really freaked me out in the house last night. You're gonna think I'm crazy." I was like, "No, I don't think I'm gonna think you're crazy. Just tell me what happened." She said they were all sleeping. She woke up. She thought my little sister was on her side of the bed. Standing next to her, she said, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on?" The lady was dressed in a nightgown. An old nightgown. She thought it was my little sister. Until it turned around. The ghost lunged at her. She started screaming, "Go away, go away, go away." She was petrified, my mom. Her voice was so shaky when she described this to me. My sisters all confirmed that, yeah, Mom was screaming bloody murder. In the middle of the night, she said she saw a ghost and it freaked her out. The next day when they went to leave the Airbnb, my mom talked to the cleaners. She was asking her, "Something feels really off about the house. Do you feel it? I might be crazy, but my whole family has felt it, and we've stayed here for the weekend." The cleaning lady said we do not stay past sunset. We clean the house before it gets dark, and then we leave. We will not be at the house at nighttime. They said things would happen to them. She didn't like the energy of the house. She would put something on the counter. She would go back, and it wouldn't be there. It would be in a different spot. She thought that there was something evil in that house. She also said when it starts to get dark, she feels the energy in the house changes and that she is being watched, whether it's daytime or nighttime. I definitely felt that in the house. No matter what time it was, if I was there alone, it felt like someone was with me. I knew it was just me and the dog in the house. It was just that eerie feeling that you got, like you were being watched. I can't remember the history completely, but I remember my mom looking it up and saying, "It used to be an old school, and that's why there's priest names on the door." I was so creeped out by the thought of that. I was very happy to leave that house. Every time we go to Oregon, we joke about, "Let's never get an Airbnb like that. Please, the Airbnb from hell." I mean, it's not your house. You are in a new area. Maybe you don't live in that area. Which, of course, we didn't. It was just something had happened in this house. We don't know the complete story. We do know that it was remodeled. That looked like two separate houses that they put together and put a new kitchen in the middle, or a dining room, so get me out of this house. We have many more stories on the podcast, so remember to follow True Scary Story. And if you want to listen to my other shows, click the link in the description of this episode if you have a story to share. Find me on truescarystory.com and fill out the form. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Bad Feeling. It was on July of 1987. I lived in the Pacific Northwest. It was during the summer. So it's really hot. It was July. It's really humid where I lived at the time. And it was about 12. I was on summer break alone. So I was alone in the house. They knew it was going to be really hot, so I wanted to make sure all the doors and windows were closed because we didn't have air conditioning. My grandpa, who was in the hospital in California at that time, but they said he was pretty stable. My Nana, who's his wife, my grandmother, she was at home. She wasn't going to visit in the hospital that day. My uncle was over taking care of her. It was in the morning too, but it was already starting to get warm out. I started doing my chores, the dishes, when then I started vacuuming. And then I felt this really sharp tap, like someone poking on my back. I felt it a few times, and I was home alone in the house. I don't have any siblings. I turned around, and there was no one there. There was no one else in the house. The living room got really cold. All of a sudden, I had a really bad feeling. So I turned off the vacuum, and then I went. I just went outside for a little bit to warm up, and I did not vacuum the rest of the day. The run at same time in California is around 10:30. My Nana got a really bad feeling, and she went straight back to the hospital. She told me that when she got there. She took my grandfather's hands, and he opened his eyes, and then he passed away. It happened at the same time that I got tapped on the shoulder, because I remember them telling me it was around 11. I looked at the clock at our house, and it was 11 too. My mom got home, and she said, "I have to tell you something." And she was pretty sad, but I already knew. I don't know how, but I just knew what she was going to tell me. I didn't vacuum for a long time after that. I'm in my 40s now, and even when I'm vacuuming in my house by myself, I leave a door open even if it's snowing here. I'm so still terrified. Like 30 years later that this is going to happen again. My Nana said that she felt for the next year or so that, and my grandfather would send her messages, but no one in my family believed her, 'cause I just thought, she's just the grieving widow and making stuff up. But then in this time, it's a couple years later in like 1989, my Nana was going to go visit my great aunt, who was in San Francisco. She was getting in the car, and she said, my grandpa spoke to her and told her not to go. She got out of the car and she called my great aunt. And they said, they calculated that the time it would have happened, she would have been on the bridge. And the time it collapsed, I don't know if you ever knew that, about the Bay Bridge collapsing. It was just toppled down onto another layer of the bridge, and hundreds of people died. It's really tragic. As with most of our calls go, I asked Tara if she had any more experiences, and she thought of one more. Here it is. My friend's friends got in 7th grade. It was summer. Got like a Ouija board, which my mom always told me, do not mess with those. Do not bring it in my house. I wasn't going to bring it in the house. But I went over to a friend of a friend's house. There's this girl, and she was just a little off. There was just something weird about her. But my best friend was with me, and it was daytime. I figured it would be okay. So we went over to her house, and we started playing with it. She started asking it questions. What's your name? Are you from here? Are you a bad spirit? And it said yes. So I was done at that point. I was like, okay, we should stop fighting like this. But she wanted to keep going, which was a little unnerving. So then she just kept asking it questions. Then my other friend was like, okay, we just need to stop this now, because we're inviting something bad into the house. We stopped, and we said goodbye. And then all the magnets on her fridge flew off the fridge to the other side of the house. I've never seen anything like. It was terrifying, and the house got really cold. We got up and pretty much ran out of the house, and I never played with her again. I think she disappeared a couple years later. She just stopped coming to school, but yeah, just a really bad vibe for her. Don't leave just yet, since today's stories are short. I am publishing 3 in total. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. Also remember, you can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, for your chance to have it featured. On an upcoming episode to listen ad-free, try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days, and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Witch Book, A family moves into a beautiful home in San Antonio, but what they thought was a fresh start quickly turned into a nightmare. Don't listen alone. My name is Edwin, and here is Veronica's true scary story. This dates back to August of 2018. My parents had decided to move from Round Rock, which is north of Austin. This happened to be a perfect timing for my younger sister and I, because I was transferring out of community college to a university in San Antonio, while she was graduating high school and gonna go to a college in San Antonio as well. It was a beautiful house. It was a 2-story house, all brick in a gated community, which was like super fancy to us. About 6 months into living there, things really started to pick up. Instantly when you walk in, it had like an eerie feeling to it. The first instance is I was in my restroom. You can see the hallway, and it was a pretty long hallway connecting all 3 rooms. I saw my sister walk out, and I said something along the lines like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Earlier, my parents said they're gonna go grocery shopping, and I thought she was going with them, but she didn't reply back to me. I started saying "What are you doing?" but I couldn't see her. So then I started looking all around the house, and when I went outside to go check if the car was gone, and I saw I was home alone, which just really freaked me out. So I kind of brushed off a little bit, thinking, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things tricking my mind. A few months passed by again. So now, March of 2019, it just became super bad actually. My mom got really sick, which prevented her from working. So she had to stay home full time. My room happened to be right above my parents' room, and so my mom was in her room a lot. And she would tell me sometimes or text me at least and be like, "Hey, are you home?" I'd be like, "No, I'm in class or doing something." She would tell me she would hear footsteps in my room, sound like someone was walking around, and she didn't think too much about it. She just thought, maybe, yeah, I'm just so bored I'm starting to hear things. And because of that, my dad got my mom a small puppy. He was a month old at that age. He was already starting to bark. At the bottom of the stairs, he was terrified to go up the stairs actually. He will only go upstairs if one of us were with him. Already that was giving me a sign is something really here in this house? The attic was right above our room. Oddly enough, it was in this hallway. There was an entrance to the attic, and shortly after that, my sister starts to smell something super bad. My dad goes, checks it out. He comes back down, and it's a dead rat. But also, he finds this box. And in that box was a weird book of some sort, which had carvings into it. You could tell there were blood marks on it. You could tell there were. Maybe a piece of bone in there. As well, my mom's kind of superstitious and shows. She was already do not open that. Do not touch it, just go ahead and burn it. But my dad doesn't believe in any of this. So he said, "No, I'm gonna open it." He opens the book. And everything was in Latin, writing, and images and just stuff you see kind of in a witch book. And so it freaked me out. And my sister and my dad was okay, Mom is right, let's burn it. So we go in the backyard, and my dad just starts a fire and throws that whole box in there. It almost looked like the flames were starting to turn blue, like it wasn't from this world almost. After he did that, it kind of made the spirits mad a bit. More time passes. One night I was in my room, and I could hear what I thought was my sister calling my name. And I said, "Hey, what's up?" And she didn't say anything back. I go downstairs because I was Okay, I heard her literally say my name. And not just my name, I have a family nickname. And it's only she calls me that. And so I go downstairs, I'm probably getting a snack. And she comes to the front door, and I say, "Hey, like Warrant, didn't you just call my name?" She goes, "No, I was outside the whole time." And that just freaked me out even more. That's when I really told her what was going on. Because not only did I hear my name, but I saw her months before. So I tell her what was happening. And she just kind of looks at me blankly. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm really going crazy. Well, my parents overhear us in the kitchen, talking about this, and that's when my dad says, "Oh, we've been hearing things too." They start to tell me that downstairs. When they go to bed, they always close the door, but they kind of stay up a little bit and watch TV. Say they've been hearing like footsteps in the kitchen, and they assumed it was us. Well, one night they got scared because that door closed and they hear big footsteps, like outside their door, and it's like a small mini hall that you kind of have to turn into to get to their room. They thought it was one of us, and so they start calling out our names. We didn't say anything back, but they could hear it breathing. Well, he got up, opened the door, nothing. And they scared both my mom and my dad while all this was going on. We were all just kind of keeping this inside with each other, because I think none of us wanted to believe something was going on. So to hear that my mom and my dad and my sister, that we all have been hearing or seeing something, it was just spooky. My parents ended up reaching out to the previous owners of the house, because technically, my parents were renting out the house, and the owners, for whatever reason, didn't want to live there anymore. Well, my parents just reached down. We're like, "Hey, like this stuff has been going on. Has stuff like this been happening to you all when y'all lived here?" And they said, "Oh no, nothing like that happened. But I think you should know this. The man had his mother living with them, and she happened to die in that house, in the room that I was sleeping in." When I find out this information, I think I turned cold. It just confirmed all the things that were happening around in that house to me, especially more towards me, because I feel like I was hearing the most and seeing the most things compared to my family. They also admitted that it was just her upstairs most of the time, so they didn't know what she was up to. But they were here late at night, walking around, talking, and they assumed that she was on the phone. One night, my sister said she was in her room, and she heard what sounded like me going through my stuff in my, like I said, we shared a wall together for our rooms. So if I was going through my drawers, or even turn on the TV, she could hear it. And she kind of just says like, "Hey," starts talking to me, but I never say anything back. Maybe 5 minutes pass, and she hears more noise coming from my room again. So she really gets up and sees that my door is closed, and was like, "Hey, like, I'm coming in to check on you." When she opens the door, she sees one of my drawers pull open. Right when she opens the door, but when she sees the drawer pull open, she realizes no one's in my room. There is only one instance where we all saw. So, something at the same time. October of 2019. Kid you not, it was Halloween night. We just got done trick-or-treating, and the front door actually was this glass-type front door where you could kind of see through it. So we had the front porch light on because we had just got done trick-or-treating. My mom's in the living room. My dad was actually out that night, so he wasn't home. But my sister and I were in the dining table, and if you lean backwards from your chair, in the dining table, you can see towards the front door. We hear the doorbell go off. And of course, in a 2-story house, that doorbell ring echoes everywhere. I lean back towards my chair from the dining table. When I see this tall figure, it's Halloween night, so, of course, costumes. And I was thinking to myself, maybe some teenagers are at the door or a teenager, because I could tell it was one person. So I grabbed the candy bowl. They ring the doorbell again. At this point, my mom and my sister behind me, kind of telling me to be careful, because it was late, but also like, yes, just get the candy out. As soon as I open the door, nothing. The shadow's gone, no one's at the front door. That freaked my mom out the most, because she's always just heard footsteps and heard things, but she never actually saw anything. So when she saw that no one showed up at the door, after we saw a shadow, we could tell someone was at the front door. That just freaked her out even more. I'm in my room one night, I go to bed like normal. But except this time, my mom's dog, he decides to sleep with me. And he never sleeps with me, but he decided to. We go to bed, and I always sleep with my door open. But in the hallway, since it was such a long hallway, we had a nightlight, so it lit up the whole hallway. I could see, like, if someone was walking in the hallway due to, like, the shadows and the passing of the nightlight. We're in bed, I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden I hear our dog start to growl. I've never heard him growl before, but he starts to growl. It wakes me up, and I look over at him like, what is he growling at? And I see that his head is towards my door. So I look to my right, and I see in the corner of my eye, there are these long fingers with like razor-sharp nails. I can see it through the shadow. And as it moves its fingers, it starts to crackle. Like it just starts to make like bones popping noise. I realized his fingers and his whole hand is starting to cover the light switch, which is the only light switch. I have to put the light on. I didn't have a lamp in that room. I just freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Like instantly, I'm just thinking to myself, whatever. This is this demon, this monster. Like it literally wants me in the dark. It's covering the light switch. I just got up and I decided I'm gonna touch it. Like I'm gonna touch it. 'Cause I need to turn this light switch on, and I did. And when I touched it, it felt scaly and very hard. And it kind of scratched me a bit. Light switch goes on. I'm hysterical. My mom's dog runs out of my room barking. Going down the stairs, I'm screaming towards my sister and I'm waking her up. Like, please. Like, wake up, you need to hear what I'm about to say next. Because I'm not lying. She's listening to me. She's telling me to calm down, like everything's okay. You're okay. I could tell she didn't believe me fully. But when I showed her the cut on my finger, I think that's when she kind of realized, okay, yeah, you're probably right. My parents come upstairs, they're like, what's going on? I tell them the same story. And I think they really believed me because I was just so hysterical that I was not gonna sleep in that room for the rest of the night. When I finally slept in that room, if anything, it just made it worse for me because I was having constant nightmares and terrors. Every night I will wake up screaming of like doing evil things to my family, which I've never had experienced that before. To this day, that really still shakes me to my core, truly. because I have had previous experiences in the past. I am the most sensitive in my family to hear, see, feel things, but I've never actually had anything touch me, or me touch it that was like the pushing factor for me to get out of the house. I had a feeling this entity was just going to continue to talk to me and play with me, because it knew I was the one that could sense, see, and hear them the most out of the rest of my family. So I moved out after that. My parents and my sister both say they haven't heard much or seen anything after that. I was so scared that this entity followed me, really, because I touched it. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Thankfully, I have not seen or heard anything since. But I definitely do get nightmares about it still. Me back in that room. Me just being so still, shaking to my core, feeling I can't move. January 2020. My family decides to move out. And on the last day, my mom, she usually likes to take video recordings of the house, empty, just like for her records and just to be like, oh, this was a fun memory. So my dad takes the video instead. He's taking the video around the house. He's going upstairs and he hits my room and he says, as soon as he hits my room, the phone goes dead. It was fully charged. It was working properly. And it just died all of a sudden. And when it died at the same time, he heard my mom call his name. He goes out, goes downstairs, doesn't see her, doesn't even see my sister. So he calls them. And he realizes he's home alone as well, because they're gone. He gathered whatever he had left and took out of the house. He waited outside. He did not want to wait inside the house anymore, because that just freaked him out more. That was the last of it. We don't know what happened, who moved in after us. We told the couple that whoever they rent the house to, next to please advise, someone did pass away because things did happen. That was a spooky house I've ever lived in. And I'll definitely remember it. I definitely do sleep with the night lights on. I do believe now that I am a stronger spiritual person. I do pray more. I got more into church after that, which helps me in my belief system. But I definitely get more hesitant when I do sense something, because I don't know if it's that same thing that's following me, or if it's something new completely. And I hope that I never experience anything like that. Again, you can get these stories without ads by trying out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com and support our small team behind the scenes. At the same time, and also, please drop 5 stars for us in the reviews for the show, and we'll keep the stories going. If you have a story you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Scary, everyone. See you soon.